Chapter 341. Chen Guanshan and Shui Yin carried Lin Yuan and sped away. Lin Yuan constantly adjusted his breathing. As time passed, his body did not get better as Lin Yuan expected. Instead, it became more and more dizzy and uncomfortable. However, in this state, Lin Yuan felt that his spirit was unprecedentedly strong. He could not even faint even if he wanted to. Ding, the foreign energy in the host's body has been completely removed. However, the changes caused by the foreign energy to the host are irreversible. Ding, due to the corrosion of the foreign energy, the host's innate talent, water affinity, has undergone an irreversible change. Innate talent, water affinity. Due to its characteristics, it has been officially renamed to Nether River Blackwater. Another series of system notifications sounded. Lin Yuan frowned slightly. However, he endured the fatigue and pain and opened his panel. Host, Lin Yuan status, Blackwater Nether Flood Dragon Mutated Realm, 21/30th speed, 300 attack, 500 defense, 500 plus 100 demonic power, 2000 assignable attribute points, 0 innate talents. First, Eye of God. Based on the smell, it forms an accurate image of the surrounding 50,000 meters. The host can inspect the attributes of all creatures within the image range. This innate talent cannot be upgraded. It is a combination of innate talent 1, innate talent 2, and the special skill, Appraisal Eye. It can be switched on or off. The scanning range is calculated based on the host's demonic power. The host can only use the ability to inspect attributes 3 times a day. If the number of uses is maxed out, it will automatically enter a cooldown period. It can only be used again after 24 hours. This skill also has a failure rate. However, it has a 100% success rate for detecting creatures below the host's realm. It has a 50% success rate for creatures of the same realm as the host. For creatures above the host's realm, it has a 30% success rate. Second, Monarch of Water. You can take away the ability to control water from creatures whose realm is lower than yours, or whose ability to control water is not as good as yours. This innate talent cannot be upgraded with attribute points. It can only be upgraded based on the host's understanding of the ability to control water. The current upgrade progress is 15/100. Third, Invisible Ice. Your ice spells cannot be detected before they are used on the enemy. This innate talent cannot be upgraded with attribute points. It can only be upgraded based on the host's understanding of the ability to control ice. The current upgrade progress is 10/300. Fourth, the Blood Sacrifice Wish Technique. Make a wish by using one's own blood or the blood of other living beings as a sacrifice. Whether or not the wish is fulfilled depends on the size of the wish and the quality of the sacrifice. This talent is a cause and effect skill. Offerings can be replaced with free attribute points. Each free attribute point is equivalent to a drop of the host's blood at the current stage. Regardless of whether the final wish is successful or not, the offerings will not be returned. 5. Flood Dragon Scale Armor. When the host's scale armor is in good condition, it can increase the host's defense by 20%. Congratulations, you've become a real Flood Dragon, so your Flood Snake Scale Armor has been changed to Flood Dragon Scale Armor. 6. Pseudo-Celestial Body. The host can control the size of his body at will. The smallest size can't be smaller than the smallest size of the species, and the largest size can't exceed the host's original size. This is a special skill. It can be upgraded, but it cannot be upgraded with free attribute points. Please find the way to upgrade it by yourself. The current upgrade progress is 0/100. 7. Dragon Aura. Although the host who has become a flood dragon is not an official member of the dragon clan, he has completely broken away from the ranks of ordinary beasts. When the host releases Dragon Aura, ordinary beasts will tremble in fear, and will not dare to challenge the host's dignity. If the other party has the bloodline of a snake or flood dragon, the effect of this skill will be increased by 50%. It will only have a slight effect on beings with a higher bloodline or realm than the host. This skill doesn't have much lethality, unless the other party's realm is far lower than yours. Then, they might be scared to death by the host's gaze. However, when facing such trash, the host wouldn't really need to activate this skill, right? No way, right? 8. Black water of the Styx River. The host will be the source of the Styx River, and open up a Styx River that belongs to him. All the creatures killed by the host will float in this Styx River. The host can decide their future at any time. If the host is not willing to let them go, they will sink into it forever, and won't even have the chance to be reincarnated. This skill seems to have come from an extremely terrifying plane. Even with the power of this system, I can only see a corner of it. This skill can be upgraded, but it can't be cultivated through normal means, and it can't be replaced with attribute points. The cultivation method of this talent is extremely evil. The more the host kills, the stronger this talent will be. Perhaps in time, the host will be able to open up a new netherworld based on himself. Martial Arts. 1. Golden Body Secrets, Stage 3 Perfection. When the host consumed a special spiritual item to temper his body, this martial art was upgraded to the perfection stage. The host can activate or deactivate the Golden Body Secrets. When the Golden Body Secrets is activated, the host will obtain 65% damage immunity. Because the Golden Body Secrets has been perfected, normal attacks will no longer reduce the progress of the Golden Body Secrets. However, some special attacks can directly cripple the host's cultivation of the Golden Body Secrets. The host must take care and develop wretchedly. Don't be reckless. In addition, this martial art can only be evaluated as trash by the system. For a real magical power, this martial art can be shattered at any time. However, this martial art is not without any advantages. For example, the host can activate this martial art to disguise himself as a member of the Golden Dragon clan. 2. Tyrant Song of the World. Special martial art cannot be upgraded. This martial art uses a special method to help the host speak. When the host speaks, the host's dignity is increased by 20%. Skills. 1. Void Embrace, 2/10/500. When the skill is activated, the host can enter the void for a short period of time. 1 second after the skill is activated, the host will appear behind the target and attack. If the host doesn't have any special methods, it will be impossible to escape from the void's embrace. 2. Curse Poison, 1/500. The host can use his own poison to replace the target's blood, controlling the target's life and death. Unless the host is immune to the poison, the host can control almost any existence corroded by his own curse poison. 3. Sea Suppressing Tail, 0/500. Because the host has upgraded his Waterflood Dragon bloodline, the original Thorny Whip skill has been upgraded. Now this skill can deal an additional 50 points of true damage to the target. However, without the power of vibration, when the host uses this skill in water, its power is increased by 50%. 4. Blood Boil Technique, 10/100. When the host activates the Blood Boil Technique, the host's attributes will be doubled for 3 minutes. The cooldown time is 3 days. 5. All Things Have Spirit cannot be upgraded. The host can communicate with any creature through his thoughts, regardless of species or language. Chapter 342. Phew! Lin Yuan suddenly exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. After looking at his attribute panel, although he was sure that most of his values had not changed, he still felt that he had become much stronger. As for the new talent ability, Lin Yuan could only laugh it off. The system itself was not a good thing. It strengthened the host through killing and war. And such an existence actually evaluated this new talent as extremely evil. How evil could it be? Could it be that this part of the soul that was absorbed into the river Styx was originally in the system's pocket, so the system was dissatisfied with this new talent? Although this talent did seem evil, it had to be said that the temptation of this talent for Lin Yuan was really terrifying. In all the worlds and countless myths, the most terrifying existence would always be the underworld. It was a place that controlled the life and death of countless creatures. Even a great cultivator who could turn the clouds and rain with a flip of his hand was under the jurisdiction of the underworld, before he truly took the step of immortality. Therefore, although the underworld was under the jurisdiction of the heavenly court, strictly speaking, they were two systems. One was the immortal immortals, and the other was the immortal immortals who controlled life and death. If it were not for the human world in between, the two sides would not rest day and night, and would always be in a war. For example, in Lin Yuan's previous life, Hell and Heaven in the West, or Asura and God in India, there were too many such examples. And the system's evaluation of this talent was also extremely terrifying. In time, he could even open up a new underworld. As the master of the underworld, Lin Yuan had won at the starting line. Except for himself, no existence could harvest his soul. Even if his physical body collapsed and decayed, Lin Yuan could at most reincarnate and cultivate again. This new talent had almost allowed Lin Yuan to take a solid step on the step of immortality. As for the river Styx, it was an even more terrifying thing. The existences that were killed by Lin Yuan would be immersed in the river Styx that belonged to Lin Yuan for a long time. After a long time, even the most rational existence would go crazy. Once Lin Yuan had the intention to kill and released his river Styx, the first thing that the existences in the river Styx would do was to pull all the creatures they saw into the river Styx, massacring cities and destroying countries in the blink of an eye. Even destroying the entire world was only a matter of time. Although Lin Yuan did not know what the dragonization route was, since it could bring such a terrifying change to him, it did not make sense that it would not be kept in the palace of the creator of this arcane realm. Right? Either this thing appeared in the arcane realm after the creator of this arcane realm had fallen, or there was a great cause of great karma. Either that, or this thing had great karma, and even someone as powerful as the creator of this secret realm had to stay away from it. Lin Yuan did not know which was the case, but he did not doubt that he had already been tainted with great karma. Although he did not know whether the heavenly court and the underworld existed in the Tianwu continent, Lin Yuan could already conclude that the legends of his previous life were not groundless. If one day, Lin Yuan really found a way to return, what he would have to face would not be a group of simple cultivators and demonic beasts, but a group of terrifying existences that had been spreading throughout the world. Their influence spanned across the heavens and tens of thousands of worlds, and any one of them could be considered familiar with the terrifying existences. Lin Yuan had the river Styx, and in the future he might even be able to create a new underworld that could stand shoulder to shoulder with the underworld and hell. Even if those almighty beings were not interested in the secrets on him, they would not allow an existence like him to continue growing. Looking around, he was surrounded by enemies. Lin Yuan, who had once again stepped into a new realm, did not feel much joy or relief. Instead, he felt that the burden on his shoulders had become even heavier. About 10 minutes later, Chen Guanshan and Shui Yan's foreheads were already sweating. After all, while Lin Yuan had shrunk his body, it did not mean that his weight had changed. 2 heavenly strength realm experts carrying a mountain lord level water jiao was a feat that no airborne realm cultivator would have dared to imagine. If they were in Lin Yuan's shoes, they would have been crushed into meat paste by his terrifying weight. It's about time. Let's rest for a while, Lin Yuan said weakly. It would not take long for those 4 to realize that Lin Yuan's previous performance was nothing more than an arrow at the end of its flight. They would return to the place where they fought Lin Yuan before. If they could not find Lin Yuan, their next step would be to return to the previous gathering place and wait for Lin Yuan to come knocking on their door. From their perspective, since Lin Yuan was unable to escape his weakened state, Lin Yuan would stay in that state for a long time. As long as they could catch Lin Yuan during that time, not only would they not have to worry about Lin Yuan's revenge when they got out, but they would also be able to explore the palace in the central region smoothly. As such, there was no way they would run away. After all, Lin Yuan's influence in the northern frontier was just too great. Unless the first thing they did after leaving here was to return to their families and inform them to give up on the northern frontier and quickly move to the south of the Shenwu dynasty, Lin Yuan's revenge was definitely not something that a few heavenly strength realm cultivators could handle. If a person's cultivation was really that useful, Du Xinghai would not have been exiled to the Hengduan mountain range, and Yan Xingqi would not have been sent to the bitter cold of the northern frontier to fend off the endless Yao beasts. Not to mention Lin Yuan's gathering power in the Hengduan mountain range, even the 600,000 guards in the northern frontier could just stand there and let them cut them down. These heavenly strength realm cultivators would be exhausted to death. Chen Guanshan and Shui Yin put Lin Yuan down and began to meditate to recover their strength. After a while, Shui Yin was the first to open his eyes and said with a frown, "This brother might have been taken by them as a barbarian from the Shuangjin dynasty, and my identity as the successor of the horse army has been exposed. Coupled with Lord Dragon King's current weakened state, and his identity as a Yao beast, those four fellows will definitely target us when they return. So I think they will soon mobilize those airborne realm cultivators, and begin to search for us." There was a saying in Lin Yuan's previous life that one's had decided one's bottom. It meant that the more capable one was, the higher one's position would be. However, this was applicable in a harmonious society. Although there was competition between people, it would not be too violent and bloody. However, in the Tianwu continent, one's bottom really decided one's head. If you don't stand on the side of the winner, then you can just wait for your death. This was not a joke, but a cruel reality. So whether those people were willing or not, they would join the search for Lin Yuan and his group. Chapter 343. The two sides had been playing a game from the very beginning. Since it was not Lin Yuan who returned to the gathering place, regardless of how many Heavenly Dipper realm cultivators there were, they had absolute authority over the airborne realm cultivators. Even if there were a few dissenting voices, those voices would be quickly extinguished by them, and then they would quickly tie those people together and use them for their own purposes. If they did not want to become the target of public criticism, then the only way to break the situation was to immediately return to the gathering place and compete with the other side before everyone's opinions were unified on the matter of Lin Yuan. That might have been able to get those airborne realm cultivators to enter a wait-and-see state again. Unfortunately for them, Lin Yuan was currently in a weakened state. Even if airborne realm cultivators were to run into Lin Yuan, there was no guarantee that Lin Yuan would be able to take them down, let alone Heavenly Dipper realm cultivators. Chen Guanshan narrowed his eyes slightly and said in a deep voice, "So, we have to keep running? Do you have any other opinions?" Sigh. Shui Yin sighed and said bitterly, "We do have to keep running, but everyone has a map. If we were to head to some safer areas, we would be quickly found out. If we were to head to dangerous areas, we would not be able to guarantee our own safety. Secondly, we would probably run into some powerful people." Everyone had a map in hand. Although they had not explored the entire secret realm, they had explored all the nearby areas with the gathering place as the center. Those Heavenly Dipper realm cultivators were able to divide into teams according to the strength of the cultivators, searching for Lin Yuan, and the others separately. After all, the secret realm was so big that it was not something that the four of them could have explored. That was why they went back to mobilize those airborne realm cultivators. Chen Guanshan's eyes flashed with a cold glint. He said in a cold voice, "If there is no safe place, then run to areas that you have not explored." At such a juncture, even if Chen Guanshan was not in the mood to gamble, he had to make such a choice at the moment. Although there was no telling what kind of threats existed in the unknown areas, they would die sooner or later if they did not take the risk. On the other hand, those people who thought that they were sure to win would most likely not choose to enter the unknown areas to fight them if they could not find them in the explored areas. The most likely possibility was that they would block the exit and wait for them to walk into the trap. "I have no objections." Lin Yuan thought for a moment and quickly replied. He was well aware of his influence. Once he made it out of the mystic realm alive, even if he didn't do it himself, those forces who were waiting to curry favor with him would spare no effort to take revenge on those who had tried to hit Lin Yuan while he was down. Therefore, from now on, apart from Chen Guanshan and Shui Yin, no one else in the mystic realm wished to see Lin Yuan leave alive. Meanwhile, on the shore outside the mystic realm, Lei Fan was holding a long sword with both hands, his clear black and white eyes filled with coldness. Behind him, a group of northern frontier guards dressed in silver armor were pressing down the cultivators who had been helped up from the water onto the ground, punching and kicking those who were struggling from time to time. After all, after the mystic realm had opened, it was no longer a secret that Lin Yuan wanted to enter the mystic realm. But these cultivators had still chosen to come over and try their luck. Some of them might have been forced to do so, but strictly speaking, these cultivators usually did not think much of Lin Yuan, the actual ruler of the northern frontier. In the past, these people had all been hiding in the dark and hence the northern frontier duke's residents could not do anything to them. But now the place they were in was part of the Hungduan Mountains, and with the proof given by Lin Yuan, the guards of the northern frontier could do whatever they wanted here. But cultivators did not have the same treatment. So even if Lei Fan killed all of them here, no one would dare to say anything against Lei Fan. As for those cultivators who thought they had some martial prowess and wanted to fight their way out of the northern frontier guards' encirclement, Lei Fan did not kill them all. On the contrary, the guards of the northern frontier guards had done their best to go easy on those who had tried to break out of the encirclement. What did they think was outside the northern frontier guards' encirclement? Was it a vast wilderness? No, it was a group of monsters led by Wan Yu, Na Qin and Bai Lu. Although there were no mountain lords, but compared to the airborne realm cultivators, there were quite a number of wisdom realm monsters. Although this was Lin Yuan's personal matter, the beast kings nearby had all benefited greatly from Lin Yuan. Although they did not participate in the battle in name, they had secretly lent Bai Lu quite a number of wisdom realm monsters to participate in the battle. If they were to fall into Lei Fan's hands, they might be able to put up a fight. But if they were to fall into the hands of the monsters, they might not even be able to leave a complete corpse. Hearing the shrill screams that kept ringing in his ears, the corners of Lei Fan's mouth curled up slightly, the coldness in his eyes growing. Beside Lei Fan was a middle-aged man holding a long halberd, dressed in bright silver armor. At that moment his eyes were closed and no one knew what he was thinking. Many pairs of expectant gazes fell upon him, but they did not get any response. In the end, those cultivators who had been tied up by the guards of the northern frontier all showed a look of despair. Even Yan Xingqi was on the black snake's side. In fact, as the guardian of the northern frontier, Yan Xingqi did not have a good impression of Lin Yuan. After all, the monsters that he had come into contact with in the past were all cruel and bloodthirsty creatures. But there were not many of them who had a good impression of humans. If it was not for the fact that the Void Realm cultivators were not allowed to interfere in battles where there were no cultivators of the same cultivation level, with his battle prowess, Lin Yuan might not have been able to conquer Shunning City. However, during this period of time when Lin Yuan was overseeing the northern frontier, other than the Black Water Dragon King Temple that he did not understand, Yan Xingqi really could not find any fault with Lin Yuan. Now the entire northern frontier was thriving under Lin Yuan's rule, and there was no longer any signs of hardship. Ever since he was exiled to the northern frontier, Yan Xingqi had treated this place as his hometown. The arrival of the Black Snake, not only did it not cause the northern frontier to fall into chaos, it had instead led the entire northern frontier to a better direction. Yan Xingqi naturally had no reason to oppose Lin Yuan. On the contrary, in the dark, Yan Xingqi had also used his influence to help Lin Yuan get rid of the infiltration of some of the bigger powers. Otherwise, the northern frontier today would not be so united. Senior Yan, if you don't have the heart, you should go back to Shunning City and rest. Lei Fan walked over to Yan Xingqi's side and said in a gentle voice, "Any change will be accompanied by pain. No matter what we do in the future, but for now, our existence is good for the entire northern frontier. The sooner we get rid of these stumbling blocks, the better it will be for everyone." Monthly ticket, 20 plus more delivered. Chapter 344. I understand. Yan Xingqi waved his hand lightly, a dim look flashing past his eyes as he frowned and said, "But I must meet this Black Snake. Otherwise, some decisions will not be easy to make. No one can guarantee that when the Black Snake is the only voice left in the northern frontier, it will still be able to rule over the northern frontier." There were many sects in the northern frontier. Although there were not many in the Void Realm, but there were still some. Lin Yuan's actions today had placed him on the opposite side of these sections. Although both sides were accumulating strength, but the conflict would erupt sooner or later. When that time came, with Lin Yuan's strength, if he did not invite the great demonic beasts from the Hungduan Mountains, he would not be able to contend against the power of these sections. After all, at the point of life and death, who would care about rules? When the time came, the Void Realm existence would definitely come to deal with Lin Yuan. But if Lin Yuan were to invite the desolate demon realm great demonic beasts from the Hungduan Mountains, then the consequences would be. Those great demonic beasts were not existences that Lin Yuan could control. Once the human side broke the rules first, then if those great demonic beasts did not kill to their heart's content, they would not be worthy of the title of beast. So before things reached that stage, Yan Xingqi wanted to see what kind of existence Lin Yuan was, and whether it was worth it for him to sacrifice his old face to protect Lin Yuan's right to rule. Someone else has come out. Lei Fan suddenly furrowed his brows and muttered under his breath. Previously, those who came out of the lake were those who did not have the qualifications to enter the mystic realm. But these people were more or less under their control. Even the guards from the northern frontier had personally entered the lake to search, but did not discover the existence of any cultivators below. Now another person had appeared out of nowhere. Then this person should have already entered the mystic realm and came out again. But why was it so fast? Poof! A cultivator in ragged clothes, his entire body covered in filthy blood, broke through the surface of the water and tumbled onto the shore, panting heavily. His chest heaved up and down violently, and the breath on his body was weak. Lei Fan had no doubt that if this guy were to continue lying down like this, he would have to swallow his last breath sooner or later. After carefully sizing up the other party for a moment, Lei Fan's face suddenly changed as he roared angrily. Quick! Save them! He recognized that person. That person was a spy of the Demon Emperor Association in a second-rate sect in the northern frontier. This time he was ordered by the sect to enter the mystic realm to search for treasures. But looking at the other party's current appearance, it was obvious that his identity had been exposed. Otherwise, the injuries on his body would not have been caused by swords and sabers. The dark child raised a hand, adjusted his breathing, and said with all his might, "There's no need. I know my own body very well. There's no saving it. Northern Frontier King, quickly organize people to enter the mystic realm and rescue the Demon Emperor. Several Heavenly Dipper realm powerhouses are organizing people to surround and kill the Demon Emperor. Before he could finish speaking, the spy had already taken his last breath. Lei Fan's eyes were bloodshot, and he was so angry that his entire body was trembling. Previously, when Lin Yuan wanted to enter the mystic realm, he had already objected to it. Now something had indeed happened. Although Lei Fan did not know what had happened in the mystic realm, but several Heavenly Dipper realm powerhouses were organizing people to surround and kill Lin Yuan, who was at the peak of the wisdom opening state. No matter how he looked at it, the situation was extremely dangerous. Therefore, there was not much time left for him. If Lin Yuan were to die in the mystic realm, he did not dare to think about the consequences. The reason why the northern frontier could prosper and develop was because of Lin Yuan's existence. Once Lin Yuan died, the northern frontier would lose the support of the Hengduan Mountains. All the advantages they had now would be gone. Facing the weapons of the Shunwu dynasty, they would not have any ability to resist. When that time came, including him, no one would have a good ending. Damn it, you won't let me have a good life? Then no one can have a good life. Lei Fan cursed fiercely, his pair of purple eyes flashing with a cold light. If the Northern Frontier sects did not let the Northern Frontier King have a good life, the Northern Frontier King would dare to declare that the Northern Frontier would no longer have a place for the sects to survive. Yan Xingqi frowned slightly and asked, "Why don't I go down and take a look?" This doesn't follow the rules." Lei Fan sucked in a breath of cold air, and looked at Yan Xingqi in disbelief. "Rules? Yan Xingqi laughed coldly and said eerily, "What are the rules? Some people say that these are the rules. Just as I expected, there is only one entrance to the mystic realm. As long as everyone dies in there, who would say that I have broken the rules? A kind man would not be an official, and a kind man would not command an army. As a general of the Thousand Swords dynasty, who was as famous as Lei Qiuxing during the Jiu-Xinghai era, Yan Xingqi would not be so inflexible to adhere to some rules. He would also not be nice to those who stood against him. Then I will have to trouble Senior." Lei Fan cupped his hands towards Yan Xingqi, the joy in his eyes hidden very well. Once Yan Xingqi made a move for Lin Yuan, it was equivalent to being tied to their war chariot. The Northern Region Lord's Mansion could be said to have a Kongming realm powerhouse in charge, and without a Kongming realm powerhouse in charge, it could be said to be a completely different force. From today onwards, if any powers wanted to reach out to the northern frontier, they would have to consider Yan Xingqi's wishes. The cold smile on Yan Xingqi's face did not fade as he narrowed his eyes and said, I have yet to promise you that I will go down to save that black snake. If it is worthy of my help, I will not hesitate. But if it is not to my liking, I might not even let that black snake go this time. Although he had a good impression of Lin Yuan for the time being, Yan Xingqi was, after all, an existence that had experienced the change of the dynasty. The existence of an opponent and the existence of an opponent are two completely different things. Since ancient times, the collapse of a dynasty was not mostly because of external enemies, but because of their own auxiliary profession. For example, in the Ming and Song dynasties of Lin Yuan's previous life, who was not invincible when they were surrounded by foreign enemies. Now that Lin Yuan was in the northern frontier, he still had opponents like the sects and aristocratic families. So Lin Yuan's wisdom could be because Lin Yuan had always been like that, or it could be because Lin Yuan was forced to put on an act. What Yan Xingqi wanted to do was to see if Lin Yuan was really like that, or if he had put on a mask for himself. Let's go. Without waiting for Lei Fan to open his mouth, Yan Xingqi's figure flashed as he leapt high up into the air. Like a falling meteor, he smashed heavily into the lake. In an instant, all the water in the lake was suspended in the air. The fishes in the water did not even know what had happened before they were smashed into minced meat by the powerful impact, dyeing a large area of the lake red. Immediately, the lake water returned to its original position, as calm as ever, as though nothing had happened. Monthly ticket full 40 tickets plus updates. Chapter 345. 2 flowers bloomed, one on each branch. We're about done here. Lin Yuan, who was being carried by Shui Yan and Chen Guanshan, raised his eyelids and said slowly, as a powerful demon beast, Lin Yuan was very sensitive to danger. After all, in order to survive in the forest, in addition to one's own strength, one must be sensitive to the appearance of danger. Otherwise, one could become food in the stomach of those more powerful predators at any time. For example, at this moment, Lin Yuan clearly sensed a powerful aura from the water in front, which was why he asked the two to stop. Because at the same time he sensed the other party also sensed his existence. However, the other party did not intend to attack him for the time being. It only slightly flashed its aura, as if warning Lin Yuan that the water in front of them was its territory. This place, Shui Yan frowned slightly. Although they had already gone far beyond the explored areas, if those cultivators wanted to take the risk and go deeper, they would immediately be discovered. At that time, if something were to happen, carrying a huge burden like Lin Yuan, they would not be able to outrun those cultivators. Chen Guanshan also frowned slightly, but soon, Chen Guanshan shook his head and said, although I also feel that it is not safe to stay here. If those guys really want to chase us, no matter how deep we go, they will still find us. It is better to take the opportunity to rest for a while. In case we run into something later, we won't even have the strength to fight back. This junior was chased by a group of humans to this place. I will borrow senior's place to rest for a while. I will leave when my injuries are slightly better. Lin Yuan did not pay attention to Chen Guanshan and Shui Yan, but said solemnly to the water in front of him. In response to Lin Yuan, there was silence. Chen Guanshan's brows that had just relaxed frowned again, and his right hand subconsciously touched his waist. Lin Yuan had just suddenly shouted to stop, and in addition to his current performance, if he still did not realize that there was a terrifying existence in front of him, then he should not have lived until today. Shui Yan's face was also full of vigilance. He looked at the water in front of him, and a trace of worry flashed in his eyes. The demonic beasts of the secret realm were all extremely hostile to humans. For example, the School of Intelligence State Level 4 Silverfish. Even if they knew that they might not be a match for humans, they would still brazenly attack humans. So whether this terrifying existence in front of them would directly attack them was really unknown. The atmosphere was like a taut string that could snap with the slightest provocation. At this moment, the water in front of them trembled, and a dull voice sounded, "Yes." His actions caused Lin Yuan and the others to heave a sigh of relief. They all collapsed onto the ground and began to adjust their breathing. Lin Yuan sat cross-legged on the ground and looked at the water in front of him. A hint of contemplation flashed through his multicolored eyes. For some reason, Lin Yuan felt that the being in front of him was very friendly. It was different from the friendliness between people of the same race. It was more like an old friend who had not seen each other for many years. That was why Lin Yuan took the risk of provoking the other party and took the initiative to speak. F***ck, they're here. Chen Guanshan suddenly cursed and stood up abruptly from the ground. Immediately, there was a burst of noise behind him. It was obvious that someone was heading this way. We seem to have made a big mistake. Shui Yan turned his head and glanced, then suddenly said. Following Shui Yan's gaze, Chen Guanshan's face suddenly darkened. Because they had been fleeing in a panic, they did not notice some details. For example, when the two of them carried Lin Yuan and ran, they left very deep footprints along the way. They did not bother to cover up as they fled in a panic. They did not notice it before, but now that they suddenly turned around and saw it, they suddenly felt as if they had cerebral palsy. They had left such obvious footprints for the other party. Now, perhaps everyone had followed the footprints and chased after them. Chen Guanshan shook his head, and the gloominess on his face dissipated. He said in a low voice, "At this point, wallowing in self-pity won't solve the problem. We have no other choice but to go all out and fight." Soon, a large group of cultivators appeared in their sight. The 4 Heaven Dipper realm experts in the lead were among them. One of them took a step forward and said coldly, "We were almost cheated by you, beast. Sure enough, you demonic beasts are all cunning and vicious. Black Snake, Grandpa advises you to cooperate with us obediently. Perhaps you still have a chance of survival. Otherwise, don't blame Grandpa for being ruthless." Lin Yuan raised his eyelids, and a sneer flashed across his heterochromatic vertical pupils. He tilted his head and said, "Who did you call cunning and vicious just now?" "I'm talking about you, you demonic beasts. You demonic beasts deserve to die. None of you are good." The Heaven Dipper realm cultivator obviously did not expect that Lin Yuan not only did not panic, but also dared to question him. He suddenly felt that he had lost face in front of everyone. In addition, he was frightened by Lin Yuan when he killed one of his companions. He really wanted to tear apart Lin Yuan, this cunning and vicious person. "Then you deserve to die." Lin Yuan's voice sounded like a biting cold wind. The Heaven Dipper realm expert swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and there was a touch of fear in his eyes. He stared blankly behind Lin Yuan. Shui Yan and Chen Guanshan, who were confused by the other party's reaction, also turned their heads with a blank face. Suddenly, the two people's eyes showed horror at the same time. Even Chen Guanshan, an old dog with a stable mentality, couldn't help but tremble at this moment. Eyes. It was a gigantic brass-colored vertical pupil. The brass vertical pupil, the bumpy skin, the oval-shaped head grew into a bumpy pentagon with sharp edges on this monster's body. Even the upper jaw and lower jaw were like 2 hacksaws biting together. No one doubted that even the Heaven Dipper realm expert couldn't withstand a bite from it. If it wasn't for the other party's 4 limbs on the ground and the mountain-like giant shell on the body, no one would think that this monster, which looked like a killing machine at first glance, would be a tortoise demonic beast known for its defensive power. Xian Wu. Lin Yuan slowly read out the name of this demonic beast. In the state of God's eye, Lin Yuan could see things that these humans couldn't see. For example, the tail hidden behind this monster was not an ordinary tail at all, but a scarlet long snake. At the end of its tail, there was a snake head with a hideous smile. Tortoise head, snake tail. Even if the other party's appearance was fierce, no one could deny that this big guy was a Xian Wu. Monthly tickets full of 60 tickets plus updates delivered. Chapter 346. The monster was slightly startled when it saw Lin Yuan call out its species. It then immediately swung its right claw out, crushing all of the airborne realm cultivators in front of it into minced meat. The pungent smell of blood immediately filled the air. That heavenly strength realm cultivator, who had been shouting, had already escaped from the black tortoise's attack range while the monster was still slightly stunned. Even so, the wind from the monster's palm still pushed that heavenly strength realm cultivator back. However, the strange thing was that such a terrifying attack from the monster did not create any rapids or small whirlpools at the bottom of the water. It was as if there was an invisible force suppressing the water. The black tortoise? That's not it anymore. The monster lowered its head and muttered silently. However, the huge monster soon raised its head again. Its eyes were filled with endless malice and hostility when it looked at the large group of humans in front of it. The heavenly strength realm cultivator, who had been shouting at Lin Yuan before, gulped and felt his legs go weak. He did not dare to look at the huge monster in front of him at all. That was because he knew very well that if it had not been for Lin Yuan calling out that strange name, and causing the monster to be startled for a while, he would have been no different from those airborne realm cultivators who had been killed by the monster. They would have all been reduced to minced meat under the monster's palm. The monster raised its right claw to its mouth and slowly extended its barbed tongue, gently licking the flesh and blood on the claw clean. A look of joy suddenly appeared in its eyes. This guy. A thin layer of cold sweat oozed from Shui Yan's forehead. That monster of unknown origin seemed to have a strong hatred for humans. The two of them were able to live peacefully with the monster because they were on Lin Yuan's side. However, killing was something that could easily affect one's mind. Who knew if the monster would go berserk and not even let Shui Yan and Qin Guanshan go? The secret realm was not small, but less than 1/5 of the area had been explored. Lin Yuan had randomly chosen an area to enter, and he had already encountered such a terrifying monster. Shui Yan did not even dare to imagine if there would be something even more terrifying in the further areas. Under the joint blockade of the northern frontier by all the major sects and clans, even a clan like the Qiao clan had not been able to get any information about the secret realm. It was obvious that the Freedom Courtyard was a top-notch clan in clans, and they did not want the Qiao clan to get a share of the pie. That was enough to prove that they valued the secret realm. If they valued the secret realm so much, why did they only explore 1/5 of the area? Was it because they did not dare or because they could not? Shui Yan was not the only Shui Yan. Lin Yuan. That was because he found that there were too many unsolved mysteries in the secret realm. For example, the strange spiritual object known as the dragonization root. It had nothing to do with the Dragon Clan, but it could allow the existence of the Dragon Clan's bloodline to advance to a higher level. However, it had something to do with the Dragon Clan, and it had given Lin Yuan a mutated innate ability that was related to the underworld. There was also the monster with the head of a turtle and the tail of a snake in front of him. It was obviously the black tortoise that he had heard of in his previous life. However, whether it was its appearance or temperament, it did not seem to have anything to do with a divine beast or an auspicious sign. Furthermore, from the reaction of Shui Yan and the others when they saw the monster, they probably did not know of the existence of the black tortoise. However, this world had Kirin, the Dragon Clan, and even the phoenix that controlled the sky. Why did the black tortoise, which was also a divine beast, not exist in this world? A moment later, Lin Yuan's face suddenly changed. There were bursts of severe pain all over his body, as if he was being roasted over a fire. If snakes had sweat glands, then Lin Yuan would probably be sweating profusely at this moment, because of the pain. At first, Lin Yuan thought that this was one of the side effects of the dragonization root. However, he soon realized that the monster's killing of humans had slowed down a lot. It was obviously suffering from an unknown pain. However, Qin Guanshan and Shui Yan, who were standing beside Lin Yuan, looked calm and unruffled. Even the pursuers did not seem to have any abnormalities other than being chased around by the monster in front of them. Very obviously, this pain came from the water region that was suppressed by a mysterious force. Furthermore, it was targeted at them, the demonic beasts. Lin Yuan suddenly felt a buzzing sound in his ears. Almost subconsciously, he turned his head. Suddenly, he seemed to see a golden light coming from the depths of the water region. In the blink of an eye, it swept past Lin Yuan's line of sight and went straight to the monster. It was only at this moment that Lin Yuan heard clearly that the buzzing sound in his ears was actually Buddhist chanting. "See Protector Black Tortoise. This poor monk remembered your meritorious service in controlling the flood years ago. Therefore this poor monk did not take your life. Therefore this poor monk suppressed you in this water region, and cleansed your body and mind with Buddhist scriptures day and night. Who would have thought that this poor monk's carelessness would allow this evil creature to escape? Amitabha, this poor monk has sinned. This poor monk has caused you to lose so many lives again. The golden light hovered above the monster's head. A gentle voice came from the golden light. The monster just waved its claws impatiently and said coldly, I say, this monk is so annoying. I can become whatever I want. What does it have to do with you? Look at you, you have been dead for so many years. Your bones have rotted and only this Sarira is left. How dare you meddle in other people's business? Aren't you afraid that your soul will scatter, and you will not enter the cycle of reincarnation? The golden light smiled faintly and chanted again. He said in a deep voice, Buddha says, if I don't enter hell, who will? If this poor monk's soul scatters, this poor monk can help you cross the sea of bitterness. This poor monk can save the common people from an unavoidable calamity. Sarira? Monk. These two keywords appeared in Lin Yuan's mind. Although there were also Buddhist sects in Sky Marshall Continent, their cultivation method was different from the Buddhist sects in his previous life. They cultivated the present life. No matter how strong a Buddhist cultivator was after death, there would be no such thing as a Sarira. Only Buddhist disciples in his previous life would cultivate the afterlife and cultivate good karma. Only after a senior monk died would he leave behind something like a Sarira. The most important thing was that this monster and the Sarira were not talking in the common language of Sky Marshall Continent, but the language of Lin Yuan's previous life. Even if the syllables were a little strange, Lin Yuan could still understand the conversation between these two terrifying existences without using the spirit of all things. In comparison, the Sky Marshall Continent's cultivators were all at a loss. Could it be that this black tortoise and this Sarira were both from Earth? Those legendary existences had indeed descended to this world, left behind their inheritances, and even their bloodlines, and then left this world? Monthly tickets, full 80 tickets plus updates. Chapter 347. Humph. The monster snorted coldly and no longer bothered with the Sarira. Despite the golden light filling the sky and the Buddhist chanting, the monster showed no intention of stopping. Instead, its killing intent grew stronger and stronger. It even crashed into the crowd and began to slaughter the airborne realm cultivators who were unable to evade its attacks in a frenzy. The Sarira obviously did not have the ability to fight on its own. Otherwise, it would not have just been chanting in midair. Under such circumstances, the Sarira could only sigh slightly. Its chanting grew louder and louder. Lin Yuan's consciousness gradually became blurred under the chanting of the Buddhist chanting. It was as if there were countless Buddhas and Bodhisattvas preaching to him. His eyelids grew heavier and heavier as they continued to droop. When he looked at the cultivators who forced him into a corner, Lin Yuan's eyes were no longer filled with hatred and fighting intent. Instead, he looked as calm as water, as if nothing in the world had anything to do with him. Wake up. Suddenly, the monster's loud and violent voice was also heard beside Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan was startled and instantly woke up from his previous state of purity. He looked at the Sarira floating in midair with eyes full of horror. It was not that he did not have means similar to mental attacks. For example, he was able to do something similar with the Song of the World. However, Lin Yuan was at most able to increase his deterrence through the power of his words, making the creatures he faced fear him. However, in that instant, Lin Yuan was almost directly converted by the Sarira's chanting of the Buddhist chanting. And this was under the condition that the main target of the Sarira was the monster. This is between you and me. Don't involve outsiders. The monster spoke again and looked coldly at the Sarira, saying in a cold voice, Although I can't destroy you, I can suppress you for 100 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years, until the last remnant of your soul is destroyed. Faced with the monster's threat, the Sarira turned a deaf ear and said indifferently, See, guardian black tortoise, I will never watch you fall into the demonic path. If you continue to kill here, I will never leave. Lin Yuan vaguely guessed something at that point. Both the Saraira and the monster used to be powerful beings. They might even have been comrades who fought side by side. But what kind of terrifying existence would such an existence face? The eminent monk had perished, and the black tortoise had fallen to the demonic path. Between the two of them, one was imprisoned here by an unknown force, while the other had to stay here and cleanse the other's demonic heart with Buddhist scriptures day and night, helping the other maintain his consciousness. Lin Yuan even rejoiced. It was precisely because of the existence of this relic that this monster, which had evolved from the black tortoise, had not completely fallen into the demonic path and become a demonic beast that only knew how to kill. Otherwise, they would have been torn to shreds by this monster the moment they set foot in these waters. The monster sneered. Although it didn't give in, it stopped killing. It looked down at the shivering humans and said loudly, "If you leave my territory, I can let you go." Boom! Before the monster could finish speaking, a terrifying shockwave exploded with him as the center. Even the monster's huge body was pushed back 30 to 40 meters by this terrifying force. "We did it!" A Heavenly Dipper Realm fighter's face flashed with joy. He said in a deep voice, "Brothers, this monster took a hit from us. Even if it didn't die on the spot, it must have been seriously injured. Everyone, let's fight together. This monster's strength is so terrifying that its flesh and monster pill must be very valuable. It might even help us break through to the next realm." When his voice fell, although the Heavenly Dipper Realm fighter's face showed joy, there was an extremely calm silence in the depths of his eyes. He had no intention of killing the monster at all. After going through a round of screening in the secret realm and being slaughtered by this monster, almost all of the cultivators who were still alive were at level 9 and 10 of the airborne realm. Many of the cultivators could even be said to be half a step into the Heavenly Dipper realm. If they were to use all of their means, they could even wrestle with real Heavenly Dipper realm fighters. One step further, and they would be Heavenly Dipper realm fighters. Although none of these cultivators were fools, it was impossible to say that they could just stand by and do nothing when such a huge benefit was right in front of them. Therefore, even if they knew that the Heavenly Dipper realm fighter had spoken, they still could not help but be tempted. Soon, the first cultivator strode towards the monster. At that moment, the tide had yet to subside, and the sand that was stirred up had yet to fall. It was impossible to see what was ahead with the naked eye. However, the other 5 senses of the cultivators were still abnormally sharp, and they soon caught a strange sound of something tearing through the air. Whoosh! A scarlet snake's head passed through countless sand and appeared in front of the cultivators in an instant. It opened its bloody mouth and bit the first cultivator who moved, then swallowed him whole. "Why is there another monster?" Soon some of the cultivators exclaimed. Their faces were filled with unconcealable fear. One monster was enough for them to deal with, and now there was another blood snake? Chen Guanshan's slightly furrowed brows relaxed, and there was even a hint of a smile at the corner of his mouth. Previously, when the monster was ambushed by the Heavenly Dipper realm fighter, he secretly broke out in a cold sweat. After all, the monster was still on their side, and it could still suppress the pursuers. However, once the monster was defeated, the pursuers would attack them. In the face of an unknown monster, these cultivators might feel fear and be restrained. But in the face of Lin Yuan, He and Shui Yan, these guys would not be merciful. They would even vent some of their previous shock and fear on them. But now, the situation had reversed once again. While Chen Guanshan was worried that this new monster would attack them, he also heaved a sigh of relief and a strange glint flashed in his eyes. He strode to Lin Yuan's side and said in a deep voice, "Previously, there was a rumor that you were the reincarnation of the ancient demon emperor. At first, I didn't believe it, even if you took out an Earth-class lower-grade physique training skill. After all, opportunity is something that everyone can have. You also didn't say that the physique training skill was an ancient inheritance, but now, I believe it. Because experience can't be faked. You even know what a monster like that is." Chen Guanshan suddenly felt that it was not so unacceptable to be Lin Yuan's lackey. Was it possible for anyone to be the lackey of the ancient demon emperor? Monthly ticket of 100 plus updates. Chapter 348. What are you trying to say? Lin Yuan raised his eyelids and said casually while sorting out the hidden injuries left in his heart by the Buddhist chanting. Chen Guanshan chuckled and asked without holding back. I just want to ask if that black tortoise you mentioned can win against these guys who are blinded by greed? The name Black Tortoise was very unfamiliar to the Tianwu continent, so when Chen Guanshan said it out loud, he still felt a bit awkward. However, that didn't stop him from expressing his thoughts. They had only just entered an unexplored area, and they already encountered this monster, and a golden ball of light that spoke a language they didn't understand. Who knew how many more terrifying things there were in this secret realm? Can it win? I don't know. Lin Yuan's heterochromatic eyes flashed with a hint of a smile. He narrowed his eyes and said, You should be asking if these guys can still find a complete corpse after enraging the black tortoise. A person's name was like a tree's shadow. As one of the 4 sacred beasts, the black tortoise was undoubtedly an extremely terrifying existence. Even if the one in front of him was just a monster with the bloodline of the black tortoise, its strength and realm were still unfathomable. He, who was a level 1 mountain lord, used the active effect of the Eye of God to check the black tortoise's attributes 3 times. And the result was that he failed 3 times in a row. That meant that the black tortoise was at least 3 levels higher than him. Even if the black tortoise was a level 4 river lord, with the enhancement of the monster's physique and the bloodline of the sacred beasts, it was not in existence that 4 heavenly strength realm cultivators, and a group of airborne realm cultivators who were cannon fodders could challenge. Boom. A loud noise was heard. The gravel that was sent flying and the turbulent water flow calmed down almost instantly. That blood snake that rushed out to kill wantonly retreated silently. When the dust settled and everyone saw the monster again, they all gasped and looked at each other. Some of the more cowardly ones even began to tremble at the legs and began to blame those heavenly strength realm cultivators for being blinded by greed and acting on their own initiative to attack that terrifying monster. Otherwise, they would have already left that dangerous area. The blood snake, which had chased countless cultivators until there was nowhere to run, was now coiled around the monster's shell. Everyone took a closer look at it and immediately caused them to gasp. That was not a blood snake at all. That was the tail of that monster. What the hell is that thing? An airborne realm cultivator asked while trembling. Monsters with 2 heads were not uncommon. Within the jurisdiction of the Dragon Palace of the 4 Seas, there was a type of monster with a lower body that looked like a lizard, covered in green scales and 9 snake heads. There was also the 2-headed gray eagle that Lin Yuan had fought before in the northern frontier. That was why monsters with several heads were not rare. However, it was the first time they saw something like that monster, which had a tortoise head on the front and a blood snake tail on the back. It was as if the 2 types of monsters were pieced together. The visual impact of such a monster was not something that common monsters could compare to. Even Chen Guanshan, who had been prepared for it, almost gasped. Eventually, he turned his eyes to Lin Yuan, and began to think about where Lin Yuan came from. Senior, if it's possible, let me take care of these people. Lin Yuan suddenly spoke in the language of his previous life. Although he had not spoken for more than a year, and his vocal organs were completely different from humans, Lin Yuan's standard Mandarin from his previous life still sounded like barbecued meat in his current life. It was not that Lin Yuan was greedy for the benefits that those humans could bring him. With his current level of cultivation as a mountain lord, only those 4 heavenly strength realm fighters could provide him with a certain amount of attribute points. Lin Yuan just did not want that black tortoise, which had already turned into a demon, to go on the path of killing again. Although the Saraira had almost converted Lin Yuan did not have much hatred towards the Saraira. On the contrary, he admired the Saraira's way of doing things. He had clearly died many years ago, but because he did not want this black tortoise to enter the Sky Martial continent and cause a storm of blood, he gave up on the chance of reincarnation, and used Buddhist scriptures to cleanse this black tortoise's soul. Those who could refine Sarairas after death were not just any Tom, Dick, or Harry. They were all accomplished monks. Once in existence like him entered the cycle of reincarnation. Even if he did not embark on the path of cultivation in his next life, he would still be a young master of a wealthy family, living a carefree life. Although Lin Yuan had not seen any demons and monsters in the Sky Martial continent, after consuming the dragon transformation root, Lin Yuan already possessed his own river Styx, even if the river Styx was still very weak and could not be summoned. Can you do it? Although the monster did not have any ill intentions towards Lin Yuan, and even tried its best to protect Lin Yuan, this did not conflict with its respect for Lin Yuan. Even if Lin Yuan was at his peak, he was not a match for it, let alone the current Lin Yuan who was extremely weak. Junior said before that I only wish to rest in Senior's territory for a while. Once my injuries are healed, I will leave. Lin Yuan's heterochromatic eyes swept across the faces of those cultivators who were so frightened that they did not dare to make a sound. He sneered. Also, these people have been chasing Junior all the way. If I cannot personally take back my face, I am afraid that I will have a heart demon in the future. I hope Senior can help Junior this once. Lin Yuan did not know to what extent this black tortoise had turned into a demon, but he was sure that every time this black tortoise killed a little more, it would be a little further away from returning to normal. So what if it could never become the sea-suppressing black tortoise that the Saraira spoke of in its lifetime? At least right now, it still had its own consciousness. Lin Yuan did not know what this black tortoise and the Saraira had encountered back then. But since everyone was on the same side now, Lin Yuan did not wish for this black tortoise to fall deeper and deeper into the abyss because of some small matter on his body. The Saraira gave off a golden light and said in a deep voice, "Sea-suppressing black tortoise, look, this little friend is more sensible than you. You and I have known each other for so many years. How can I harm you? With you here, these little fellows will not harm this little black Jiao. I fear they will want to have 2 more legs and leave this ghastly place as soon as possible." The monster thought for a moment, and then a touch of sadness flashed through its eyes. It said in a deep voice, "Human, I will give you one last chance. If you get out of my territory now, I can let bygones be bygones. But if you want to stay, haha. Monthly ticket full 120 plus updates delivered." Chapter 349. The monster's words made the group of humans feel as if they had been pardoned. They all turned around and ran, as if they were afraid that the monster would go back on its words. After the pursuers scattered, the monster's gaze landed on Lin Yuan. It asked, "Since you know the language of the ancient demon court, it means that you and I are of the same origin. But why do I feel so unfamiliar with your bloodline? Which branch do you belong to?" Lin Yuan was speechless. Suddenly, the air quietened down. In Lin Yuan's previous life, Lin Yuan could have dug up the family tree and talked to the monster. But now the water dragon bloodline in his body was given by the system. There was no clan behind him. How could he belong to any branch? Even if he was sure that the monster and the relic came from the mythical system of his previous life, those legends were still too far away from ordinary people. The so-called scholars had their own opinions. It seemed like there was a complete system, but strictly speaking, there was only a name of the god system. Even the authority of some gods was still being debated. Seeing that Lin Yuan was silent, the monster laughed dryly and said bitterly, "Since you don't want to say, then forget it. Anyway, my brain is getting worse. Even if you tell me, I might not be able to remember. I just thought that I saw the descendant of an old friend. That's why I asked." Lin Yuan's polite smile was a little awkward. He watched as the monster and the relic returned to the depths of the water. Lin Yuan exhaled a long breath of foul air. So, the ancient demon court really existed? Damn it. Lin Yuan was shocked. Although the ancient existences on the Tianwu continent did not appear, it did not mean that they did not exist. Just like the system said, there might not be many true dragons in the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. There might not be many of them, and there might not be any of them at all. Lin Yuan did not doubt that ever since he used the ancient demon court as a banner, some of the ancient powers had already seen him as a thorn in their side. On the other side, Yan Xingqi, who had passed through the door of the secret realm, broke a giant worm that was almost 300 meters long with his halberd. His gaze fell on the broken walls around him, and a look of contemplation appeared in his eyes. This damned place. Why was it randomly teleported? Without a map of this secret realm, There was nothing that could lead the way. Yan Xingqi was like a blind man crossing a river in this secret realm. He had no idea what to do next, or where he should go. Roar, roar, roar. Beast roars could be heard one after another. Yan Xingqi raised his halberd impatiently, his eyes filled with coldness. The demon beasts in this underwater secret realm were like maggots. Even if he slaughtered a large number of them, there would still be a beast king that would gather more demon beasts to kill him. Even if it was useless every time, these demon beasts still wouldn't stop. In less than a day, the good impression that Yan Xingqi had for these demon beasts was quickly worn away. Right now, he only wanted to find that black snake as soon as possible. After confirming what he wanted to confirm, he would immediately leave this damned place and do what he needed to do. He did not want to waste time here with a group of beasts. Suddenly, Yan Xingqi's eyebrows twitched. Yan Xingqi's figure flashed and disappeared from where he was standing, leaving a long trench in the water. In an instant, he appeared in front of the group of demonic beasts that had gathered. In just one move, he knocked the leading demonic beast king to the ground. Without waiting for the other party to struggle, Yan Xingqi stepped on the demonic beast king's head. Under the terrifying difference in strength, the demonic beast king instantly gave up struggling and obediently closed its eyes to await its death. However, the death that it imagined did not come. The beast king opened its eyes and looked at the powerful human in confusion. A while ago, a large group of humans and a black snake entered this place. If you can find me, you can definitely find them. Tell me, where are they? Yan Xingqi had a kind smile on his face, even revealing 2 rows of white teeth. The demonic beasts in the secret territory were all like radars. No matter where he hid, those demonic beasts would quickly find him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have hated these guys so much. They were all like psoriasis that he couldn't get rid of. Tell me, where are they, and I will let you go, understand? Yan Xingqi tried his best to resist the urge to stomp the beast king to death, and continued to speak with a kind tone. Even the weakest demon beast in the secret realm had the cultivation of the wisdom state. Therefore, Yan Xingqi was sure that these demon beasts had the ability to communicate. If they were just a group of guys who only knew how to kill, they would not have gathered such a large group of demon beasts to hunt him down. Moreover, after he controlled the beast king, those demon beasts would not be stunned in place, afraid that they would provoke him and cause him to kill the beast king. After a moment of silence, the beast king pointed in a direction and said, "The outsiders you mentioned were in the silver-scaled fish's territory some time ago. We have strict rules here. I can't enter the silver-scaled fish's territory, so you can only go there yourself. Even if they aren't there, you can still get some information from the silver-scaled fish." Silver-scaled fish? Looking in the direction the beast king pointed, Yan Xingqi nodded. Then he stomped his foot heavily, sending the beast king who was willing to cooperate with him to the underworld. Yan Xingqi waved his halberd, stirring up a large amount of water currents. His gaze fell on the demon beasts who were enraged by the death of the beast king. The corner of his mouth curled up slightly, and he said in a cold voice, "A bunch of trash, you can obviously communicate with me, but all of you shut up and chased after me. You really think I have a good temper? Now the hunter and the prey have switched places." Previously, Yan Xingqi had thought of using his cultivation base to quickly patrol around this secret realm. However, Yan Xingqi could faintly sense a dangerous aura coming from several directions. Hence, he had to move very slowly. Along the way, he had slaughtered 2 to 3 demonic beasts. Only then did he meet a fellow who was willing to communicate with him. Now that he had obtained the information he wanted, those demonic beasts who had been chasing after him for a period of time would naturally have to suffer his revenge. The halberd danced and the water currents surged. Countless demon beasts were torn to pieces under Yan Xingqi's slaughter, and a large amount of blood mist spread out. 10 minutes later, Yan Xingqi finished off the last secret realm demon beast with his halberd. Only then did he stop his slaughter. Standing on the spot, he took 2 deep breaths, and the redness on his face faded a little. He sighed and said, "Looks like I am really getting old. Such a small amount of exercise. Even if I were 20 years younger, it would not even be considered a warm-up. Now, I am actually starting to pant. If there are more, I will continue to add more chapters." Now that there are no more chapters, the author is trying his best to write. Chapter 350. 3 days had passed since Lin Yuan recovered from his weakened state. In these 3 days, there were cultivators standing at the edge of this water area every day, looking at Lin Yuan from afar. These people had already offended Lin Yuan. Naturally, they didn't want Lin Yuan to leave this secret realm alive. So every day, they hoped that Lin Yuan would leave this dangerous water area as soon as possible. Even if he didn't want to enter a place that had been explored, he should at least enter another unexplored water area, right? Without that monster as a foreign aid, although Chen Guanshan and Shui Yin weren't easy to deal with, they weren't put in the eyes of the 4 Heaven Dipper realm experts. Even if there was a certain gap in strength between the two sides, they always had a certain advantage when fighting 4 against 2. It's almost time to end it. A cold light flashed in Lin Yuan's heterochromatic eyes. Chen Guanshan and Shui Yin, who were meditating, were shocked. Their eyes fell on Lin Yuan at the same time. They didn't have a good time during this period. In order to explore the secret realm, they prepared enough materials. However, Lin Yuan also explained the situation to them later, so they knew what the monster was. Things like becoming a demon were not rare in the Tianwu continent. It was impossible for existences like Shui Yan and Chen Guanshan to not have seen the purgatory beasts. Even if they didn't encounter it, once a purgatory beast appeared in the nearby area, they would be recruited as a fighting force to participate in the battle. So in their eyes, that monster was in existence that was about to become a purgatory beast and was still struggling. They were worried these 2 days that the monster couldn't keep its mind and directly became a purgatory beast. Then it would directly lose its mind and attack them. Originally, the monster's strength was already above them. Once it became a purgatory beast, its strength would increase by leaps and bounds. At that time, if they joined forces to fight against it, they might end up being killed in an instant. Now that Lin Yuan looked like he had recovered, Chen Guanshan and Shui Yin suddenly became excited. If they continued to stay in this damned place, they might drive themselves crazy first. Carry me to that water area. Lin Yuan and the 2 of them looked at each other and exhorted softly. At this time, if Lin Yuan continued to go deeper into the waters, the pursuers would certainly not dare to follow him. Moreover, Lin Yuan did not have the courage to explore deeper. This time, he encountered a black tortoise that had turned into a demon. There was also a Saraira here to restrain it and prevent it from completely losing its mind. Therefore, this was Lin Yuan's luck. However, something like luck could be used, but one could never rely on it. This was because no one knew if good luck would favor them next time. However, if Lin Yuan were to return to the waters they had explored, there was no way those cultivators wouldn't have guessed that Lin Yuan had already recovered, given how astute those cultivators were. Even though it took half a month for Lin Yuan to recover among the dragon-blooded monsters they had captured in the past, they would still choose to send some airborne realm cultivators to test Lin Yuan out of safety concerns. They might not even show their faces. However, if Shui Yan and Chen Guanshan were to carry Lin Yuan to another unexplored water area, they might still not be able to avoid being tested by the monsters. However, it was certain that all 4 heavenly strength realm cultivators would show up. After all, monsters were very sensitive to their own territories. Lin Yuan had used the language of Earth to communicate with the monster and the Saraira. Naturally, they did not know the specific content. However, judging from Lin Yuan's behavior for the past 2 days, they guessed that the terrifying monster did not intend to let Lin Yuan set foot in its territory. Therefore, at this time, it was completely reasonable for Lin Yuan to take the risk to go through other unknown water areas, and then achieve his goal of staying away from them. Okay. Chen Guanshan and Shui Yin looked at each other, and both of them became alert. As usual, one of them lifted Lin Yuan, and the other carried him by his tail, and strode to another unknown water area. In fact, it could not be said that it was unknown. After Lin Yuan's Eye of God passive effect was activated, he could directly see the situation in that water area. After all, not all monsters had the ability like the black tortoise and the Saraira, who could use their own aura to block the exploration of the Eye of God. Therefore, Lin Yuan was sure that the unexplored water area next door was a dead land. Other than the remains of some monsters, Lin Yuan did not see any life at all. Obviously, it had been abandoned for a long time. However, these sects and forces only wanted to get the treasures in the central palace, and did not want to continue to explore this secret realm. After all, they had not eaten the things in front of them. How could they be in the mood to pile up a more detailed map with their lives? As soon as Lin Yuan moved, the cultivators, who had been eager for a long time, also began to move. In order to hunt down Lin Yuan, they now only had 4 Heavenly Dipper Realm cultivators and 21 Airborne Realm cultivators left. Compared to the hundreds of people when they first entered the secret realm, it could be said that it was very bleak. However, this also made them more determined to kill Lin Yuan here. Otherwise, once Lin Yuan left the secret realm, their losses would be more than what they had now. This was especially true for the major sects and forces. The conflict between the two sides was already on the verge of erupting. It was only because the two sides restrained their temper that they did not directly fight. This time, after falling out with each other, Lin Yuan would make a move on these sects and forces as soon as he left the secret realm. A group of 25 people quickly followed Lin Yuan's group into the new unknown water area. Most of them already had a certain understanding of the rules of this place. Different groups were divided into different territories. Unless it was time to hunt, these monsters would not take half a step out of the minefield. The noon hunting time had just passed. Even if the monster wanted to continue to help Lin Yuan, it would not step out of its own territory. Black Snake, this time you're dead. The Heavenly Dipper Realm cultivator, who had been shouting at Lin Yuan before, secretly clenched his fists. A gloomy look flashed in his eyes. He felt that he had been humiliated in front of Lin Yuan several times in a row. This made him, who came from a superclass sect, resentful of Lin Yuan in his heart. After all, it could be said that he was almost surrounded by thousands of people since he was a child. Even some of the young masters of the big families had to smile and talk to him submissively when they saw him. However, this Black Snake had humiliated him several times in a row, which was tantamount to giving him several loud slaps in the face. Chapter 351. After entering this desolate water area, the group of cultivators trembled in fear. After all, the scene of the monster slaughtering everyone 2 days ago was still vivid in their minds. Now that they had stepped into an unfamiliar water area again, even if everyone present had decent combat strength, they were on high alert at this moment, afraid that another monster would suddenly jump out from the side. However, after walking for 700 to 800 meters, other than the traces left by Lin Yuan and his group on the white sand, they didn't see any traces of living creatures at all. They only saw pieces of decaying beast bones from time to time, as if there had been no life here for a long time. After a moment, someone suddenly exclaimed, "Black Snake!" Only then did everyone recover from their alert state, and they all cast their gazes forward. At this moment, Lin Yuan didn't have the slightest weak posture of being carried by people at all. Instead, he was coiled up and coldly sizing up a group of cultivators with strong fighting spirit. Chen Guanshan crossed his arms in front of his chest and stood on the left side of Lin Yuan. Threads that couldn't be seen by the naked eye were floating around Chen Guanshan, while on the right side of Lin Yuan, there was a cold expression on his face. After taking off his shirt, he revealed the iron rings that covered his arms. Thump! The 4 Heaven Dipper Realm powerhouses walking at the front were shocked at the same time, and they all looked at Lin Yuan with horror in their eyes. This Black Snake has actually recovered. Thinking back to the day when Lin Yuan instantly killed a Heaven Dipper Realm powerhouse who was on the same level as them, these 4 people's faces were filled with horror at the same time. However, soon a Heaven Dipper Realm powerhouse regained his composure and sneered. "It's only been 2 days. Even if this Black Snake can really recover from its weakened state, can it still perfectly control its own power? It's deliberately mystifying to scare us away." Oh. Lin Yuan's eyes flashed with a hint of ridicule. In the next moment, a ferocious water dragon had condensed beside Lin Yuan. Seeing that Lin Yuan could really mobilize his own power, the 4 Heaven Dipper Realm cultivators were shocked again. The scene of Lin Yuan instantly killing a Heaven Dipper realm cultivator was still vivid in their minds. They didn't want to be the unlucky ones. The mockery in Lin Yuan's eyes turned into a sneer as he said with a dark face, "What? This king was able to transform into a flood dragon, thanks to the opportunity that you guys found for him. Now that this king has recovered to his peak state, don't you guys want to come and see how good this king is?" A Heaven Dipper realm expert's eyes burned with fighting spirit as he growled, "Everyone, things have come to this point. Even if we are willing to take a step back, this black snake will never let us go. We can't escape death anyway. Let's fight." It was as if the surrounding water had received an order from a king. They turned into water swords and rushed towards Lin Yuan. Just this? Lin Yuan's eyes flashed with ridicule. In the next moment, the Water King launched those swords, but they collapsed before they could get close to Lin Yuan. As a water-type monster, Lin Yuan could see at a glance that the other party's method was just a feint. It condensed some water to attack the enemy in an instant. There was no need to guide and control at all. Therefore, even if there was a certain gap between the two sides, Lin Yuan could only temporarily affect the opponent's ability to control water, but Lin Yuan could make it collapse directly. The Heaven Dipper realm expert who controlled water changed his face. He knew that Lin Yuan was a water-type monster, but he didn't expect Lin Yuan's ability to control water to be so strong that his probing attack instantly turned into nothingness. If it was just this, he didn't intend to rely on these methods to test the opponent's strength. However, the moment Lin Yuan made his move, he suddenly felt that the surrounding water spirit power was directly disconnected from him. What kind of absurd thing is this? He, a Heaven Dipper realm water cultivator, actually lost the ability to control water under the water. This black snake is different, eh? The Heaven Dipper realm expert who controlled water just opened his mouth. Another Heaven Dipper realm expert narrowed his eyes slightly and said in a deep voice, "It seems that our Black Water Dragon King has awakened an incredible ability after transforming into a flood dragon. But it doesn't matter, its ability can't be effective forever. You step aside for the time being, I will deal with this black snake." As his voice fell, the Heaven Dipper realm expert's body crackled and thunder surged continuously. His whole person looked like he was wearing a purple battlesuit. Thunder-type cultivator? The expression on Shui Yan's face changed slightly. There were many schools of thought among cultivators. Among them, the 5 elements were the most common. In a place like the Northern Territory, cultivators of the water, wood and earth elements were more common. After all, the cultivation speed of cultivators in different environments would also be different. But aside from the common 5 elements, there were also some rare special elements. For example, the lightning element was known as the element with the most powerful and violent attacks among the special elements. There was a rumor in the northern frontier that the first-rate sect, the Flying Sun Pavilion, had a thunder technique that was passed down from ancient times. Those who weren't talented couldn't cultivate it. But rumors were just rumors. Although the Flying Sun Pavilion didn't refute the rumor, they understood the principle of a tall tree attracting the wind. So the Flying Sun Pavilion had never revealed any traces of thunder technique. It was only until now that the Heaven Dipper realm expert from the Flying Sun Pavilion revealed his thunder technique. In the blink of an eye, the Heaven Dipper realm expert from the Flying Sun Pavilion had already rushed over. His fists were wrapped in lightning as he went straight for Lin Yuan's face. The surging electric current hit his face, and even Lin Yuan felt suffocated. "Tut!" Another Heaven Dipper realm cultivator growled. A milky white sound wave actually appeared, and went straight for Lin Yuan's back. In the blink of an eye, Lin Yuan fell into a situation where he was attacked from the front and back after defeating the Heaven Dipper realm expert, who could control water. Chen Guanshan and Shui Yan's expressions changed slightly. They moved almost at the same time, wanting to block one side for Lin Yuan. However, the airborne realm cultivators around them also moved quickly and surrounded the two. The Heaven Dipper realm expert who could control water was right. Things had already come to this point. Even if they were willing to let Lin Yuan go now, once Lin Yuan left this secret realm, he wouldn't let them and the forces behind them go. Therefore, from the moment they decided to stand in a team, Only one side could survive between them and Lin Yuan. Therefore, there was no reason for them to retreat now that they had started fighting. Even if they didn't have the guts to fight Lin Yuan, they wouldn't let Chen Guanshan and Shui Yin interfere in the matter of 4 Heaven Dipper realm experts surrounding Lin Yuan. Keep moving forward if you don't want to die. Chen Guanshan's eyes were red. He didn't hold back at all with the scimitar in his hand, which was his trump card. He directly plunged it into the crowd and instantly killed 8 late-stage airborne realm cultivators. Chapter 352. Seeing how Chen Guanshan looked like a madman, the airborne realm cultivators who rushed up looked at each other. For a moment they were actually intimidated by Chen Guanshan's aura. However, they did not directly rush up. These airborne realm cultivators still surrounded Chen Guanshan and Shui Yan. They knew very well that while Chen Guanshan's scimitar was terrifying, he was only able to use it twice when he was at his peak. After that, Chen Guanshan's aura would become unstable. Even if he still had the strength to fight with them, he would not be able to kill them all in an instant. Kill. Chen Guanshan's attack did not scare off those airborne realm cultivators, but Shui Yin quickly growled and took the initiative to rush forward. Both of his hands abruptly lashed out at the same time. It took only an instant for 6 airborne realm cultivators to be sent flying by Shui Yan's terrifying strength. 2 of them were even crushed into meat paste on the spot. Both of them did not hold back at all. They even used their trump cards as soon as they came up. Even if they were to face a group of cultivators who were half a step into the Heavenly Dipper realm, they were confident that they could kill or severely injure the other party. Shui Yan, you are also a member of a clan in the northern frontier. Do you think that this black snake is now attacking our sects and forces, and when it defeats us later, you people of the clans and families will end up well? Yes, this black snake is very ambitious. Although it is treating the clans well now, the black snake obviously wants it to be the only voice in the northern frontier. When our sects and forces are suppressed, you people of the clans and families will definitely not be able to get any benefits. Lord Shui, you are a member of the northern frontier, so I hope that you will stand on our side. When this black snake was not around, everyone was doing well. Although I do not deny that the appearance of the black snake has indeed made the northern frontier prosperous, don't be fooled by appearances. The black snake is just trying to divide us and defeat the sects and clans one by one. Voices of persuasion were heard. While those airborne realm cultivators were no match for Shui Yan and Chen Guanshan, they had nowhere else to run. If Chen Guanshan, who was suspected to be the Shuangjian barbarian, was the only one present, they would have been able to hold their own for a bit. However, as soon as Shui Yan, who was the successor of the Ma army, got involved in the battle, the scales of victory would have tipped right away. Even if all of them were to die, they would have only been able to delay those 2 for a bit. No one wanted to die. If they wanted to die, they wouldn't have participated in this incident. At first, they only thought that exploring the secret territory was a good opportunity to improve themselves. However, no one thought that this matter was set up by some people from the beginning to the end. They also didn't expect that the battle between Lin Yuan and the sects would directly break out in the secret territory. They didn't even have the chance to choose. They were forced to stand on the side of the sects and become enemies with Lin Yuan. Now it was too late to regret. Master Shui, I've heard a lot about you. I've long wanted to meet you, a piece of trash. The Heavenly Dipper realm powerhouse who could control water entered with a strong force. His eyes fell on Shui Yan's face without restraint. He sneered and said, as a level 4 Heavenly Dipper realm cultivator, you can't even support a small family. So, it shouldn't be a problem for me to call you trash, right? Shui Yan glanced coldly at the Heavenly Dipper realm powerhouse who could control water and said expressionlessly, Li Chong, I still remember the scene when you knelt at the door of my Shui family and begged me to give you a meal. You're just a villain who got what he wanted. Li Chong snorted coldly and stepped forward. He pulled out the sword at his waist with a backhand. The cold blade was raised and directly slashed at Shui Yan's face. Shui Yan didn't dodge. He directly raised his arms to affect the other party. For a moment, the shadows of the sword and the fist almost shrouded the 2 figures. It was almost impossible to tell who was leading the attack. Chen Guanshan gently exhaled. When his eyes fell on the other Heavenly Dipper Realm powerhouse who didn't participate in the siege of Lin Yuan, he put his right hand on his chest and made a strange bow. He said in a deep voice, "Senior Su Chen Guanshan, the Jinx, pays his respects." He, well said, well said. Senior Su was an old man who was missing his front teeth. His skin looked drier and more wrinkled than the bark of a tree. There was no sword hanging at his waist, but a golden pipe. If he wasn't famous in the northern frontier, and was once known as a poison master, ordinary people would only think of him as an old farmer who was obsessed with mulberry fields. Similarly, very few people knew that Senior Su and Chen Guanshan came from the same sect. That organization, which was similar to the embroidered uniform guard, would cultivate a group of terrifying assassins almost every 10 years. For example, Chen Guanshan's sect was good at hidden weapons and controlling objects. Another sect that was equally famous specialized in the art of poison. They could take a person's life from thousands of miles away in a day. Senior Su took the pipe from his waist and gently took a puff. With an intoxicated expression, he said, "It's not easy to master the 1,000 silk twists. In my generation, there were only 5 people who were able to master the 1,000 silk twists. For you to be able to master the 1,000 silk twists, you don't lack talent or fortune. It would be a pity if you died here." At this point, Senior Su paused. He squinted his eyes and smiled. "Seeing that we are from the same sect, if you surrender now and help us deal with this black snake, I can spare your life. How about it?" Chen Guanshan didn't say anything. He just frowned with a thoughtful look in his eyes. Although they were from the same sect, he knew nothing about the poison cultivator's methods. He didn't even know what methods the poison cultivator would use to attack him. He was even worried that the poison cultivator had already poisoned him in the time it took for him to speak. What a pity, what a pity. Senior Su put down the pipe in his hand and shook his head gently. A look of regret flashed across his face. However, after feeling regretful, Senior Su suddenly opened his mouth. A mouthful of thick purple smoke came out of his mouth, and instantly spread in the direction where Chen Guanshan was. Along the way, 2 airborne realm cultivators couldn't dodge in time, and immediately knelt on the ground with their hands on their throats. In just 2 breaths, they died on the spot. There was a big difference between the half-step celestial star border realm and the celestial star border realm. Moreover, the few celestial star border realm cultivators who were making a move here were not the top of the celestial star border realm. Once they went all out, the so-called half-step celestial star border realm cultivators were no match for them. Chen Guanshan's eyes twitched. He tapped on the ground with the tip of his foot, and suddenly retreated. He didn't want to see if that cloud of poisonous smoke could kill him like how it killed those airborne realm cultivators. Senior Su was still smoking his pipe from time to time. It was as if he was not worried about Chen Guanshan being able to dodge his attack at all. He looked like he was just watching a show. Chapter 353. Black Snake, none of your helpers will be able to come. Lei Xiu said mockingly as he waved his fist at Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan wasn't in a hurry to fight back. He just kept dodging under the opponent's stormy attacks. When he couldn't dodge anymore, he would control the water dragon behind him to block. It was as if he was firmly suppressed by the opponent's attacks. Even fighting back became a problem. Lei Xiu waved his fist and sneered. "I knew it. Black Snake, you haven't left the weak state at all. You're just pretending now. Do you think we can suffer the same loss twice? This time if you..." Before Lei Xiu finished his words, he lowered his head in disbelief and stared blankly at the dragon tail that pierced through his chest. "Let me teach you a lesson. You can use it in your next life." Lin Yuan, who succeeded in one hit, sneered and said in a deep voice, "In your next life, when your opponent keeps dodging your attacks, you have to be careful, because the opponent may not be suppressed by you to the point that he can't fight back. Instead, he's constantly adapting to your attack rhythm. Once the time is right, your opponent will quickly reveal his fangs and finish you off." Lei Xiu wasn't a cultivator of the thwart cultivation method. He just relied on his speed and the protection of the thunder armor, so he was arrogant enough to fight Lin Yuan in close combat. However, with Lin Yuan's current attack power, He really didn't care about the defensive power of the thunder armor. It was just that if he attacked rashly he would be blocked by Laishio. Now that he was attacked from the front and back, Lin Yuan didn't have the intention to fight slowly with Laishio. Instead, he had been looking for an opportunity to kill him in one blow. Just now, under the continuous attacks, Laishio quietly took a breath, causing the storm-like attacks to be interrupted. This allowed Lin Yuan to seize the fleeting opportunity to directly erase his existence. At this time, the sound waves from the Heaven Dipper Realm expert had already arrived behind Lin Yuan. Seeing the sudden death of the Thunder Cultivator, the Heaven Dipper Realm powerhouse did not have much emotion on his face, as if everything was within his expectations. Seeing that Lin Yuan still did not dodge, there was even a sneer on his face. It seemed that Lin Yuan's behavior, in his opinion, was simply courting death. However, Lin Yuan didn't think so. First of all, Lin Yuan's defense was as high as 600 points. Coupled with the 65% damage reduction from the max-level Golden Body secret art, it was almost enough to make him immune to most of the damage. At the very least, damage that was enough to kill a Mountain Lord realm monster in the eyes of others would only cause light or serious injuries to Lin Yuan at most. Of course, if Lin Yuan were to take on a terrifying killing move like the Fire Kirin's Doomsday Meteor, he would still die on the spot. After all, that kind of damage had already exceeded the limit of what Lin Yuan could withstand. However, how could a mere Heaven Dipper Realm Level 3 cultivator compare to the means used by a desolate Demon Realm expert? The milky white sound waves landed heavily on Lin Yuan's body. Lin Yuan staggered from the impact, and some of the scales on his body instantly shattered. However, this degree of injury was nothing to Lin Yuan. After experiencing the pain of his physical body transforming into a flood dragon, this sound wave wasn't even qualified to make Lin Yuan feel pain. That's it. Lin Yuan turned around and tilted his head at the Heaven Dipper Realm expert, who roared out the sound wave. A hint of mockery flashed in his heterochromatic eyes. This Heaven Dipper Realm expert clearly didn't expect Lin Yuan to not die on the spot after taking on his strongest move head-on. If that was all, it wouldn't be a big deal. After all, Lin Yuan was now a terrifying existence that could instantly kill a Heaven Dipper Realm Level 2 cultivator. Putting aside his attack power, his ridiculous defense power was nothing much. However, now that this scene appeared before his eyes, this Heaven Dipper Realm expert only wanted to curse. How was this F*King ridiculous? This was F*King fantasy. His strongest move landed squarely on Lin Yuan's body, but Lin Yuan didn't seem to feel it at all. It was as if his full-strength punch had directly hit cotton. Subconsciously, this Heaven Dipper Realm cultivator wanted to escape. Although he was a disciple of a sect, the sect behind him was different. The sect behind him had a Void Realm expert. If Black Snake wanted to touch the sect behind him, he would have to consider whether he had the ability to do so. However, the moment this Heaven Dipper Realm expert turned around, he suddenly saw a clear and transparent water dragon looking down at him. Although that ferocious face was made of water, it still brought a deep sense of fear to this Heaven Dipper Realm expert. Black Snake, my master is Master Qingming. He's one of the few Void Realm experts in the northern frontier. If you kill me, my master will never let you go. Most people would panic when they encountered danger, but there were also some people who would become calmer and even think of solutions that they couldn't normally think of. This Heaven Dipper Realm expert was clearly this kind of person. He was very clear that his relationship with Black Snake had reached a point where only one of them would die. As the person who took the lead in scheming against Black Snake, even if Black Snake let everyone go, it wouldn't let him go. Therefore, he knew that begging for mercy wouldn't have any effect. Master Qingming? Lin Yuan's heterochromatic eyes flashed with a hint of coldness. Although he didn't make any movements, the image of the angry dragon that could instantly kill the powerhouse of the Kongming realm stopped in an instant. It just maintained the posture of staring at the powerhouse of the Heavenly Dipper realm. Black Snake, although I don't want to admit it, you are a powerful person. Therefore, you should know that there are no eternal enemies in this world, only eternal benefits. I can join hands with these people to harm you for the spiritual item in the Central Palace. Then, I can become your staunch ally for other benefits. This matter is my fault and I admit it. As long as you state a price, I will definitely not frown. Perhaps we will have a chance to cooperate in the future. Seeing that Lin Yuan was really intimidated by Master Qingming's name, the Heaven Dipper realm expert immediately added with a smile. His expression gradually relaxed. Lin Yuan was secretly thinking, although the existence of the Kongming realm and the desolate demon realm or above, according to the unspoken rules of the Tianwu continent, they are not allowed to intervene in the war without the strength of the same level. On Lin Yuan's side, whether it is the Northern Region Lord's Mansion or the Blackwater Dragon Palace, there is no existence that can compete with the Kongming realm, so he can use this rule to protect himself. However, there was always a limit to everything. In the face of life and death, these people didn't care about rules. Chapter 354. Speaking of which, this unspoken rule was applicable during peacetime. Now that the Xinwu dynasty was so chaotic and the northern frontier had fallen into Lin Yuan's hands, who knew how many people were eyeing Lin Yuan's terrifying benefits? If Lin Yuan forced these cultivators into a corner, he would definitely not have a good ending. It was even possible that he would be directly killed by a Void Realm cultivator. For these sects with Kongming realm in charge, Lin Yuan's initial intention was not to uproot them, but to expel this level of sects from the northern region. He was not arrogant enough to think that he was invincible, so after the Heavenly Dipper realm powerhouse mentioned his master, Lin Yuan seemed a little hesitant. There were ways to expel them. For the current Lin Yuan, the best way to expel these sects with Void Realm cultivators was to deal with them coldly. After all, the matter of weakening the sects and clans had already been decided. These benefits snatched from the mouths of these clans and sects would ultimately become the benefits of the Northern Frontier Academy. When these sects and clans felt that they had no benefits in the Northern Frontier, and would grow weaker day by day, even unable to recruit disciples, they would naturally move to other places to take root. It's just a fake Taoist. Can his name be used to scare people? In the distance, a middle-aged man in silver armor strode over. His majestic gait and the bloody aura radiating from his body immediately caused Lin Yuan's pupils to contract. Shock appeared in his eyes. Insulting my master, I think you're courting death. The Heaven Dipper realm powerhouse had just used his master to suppress Lin Yuan, and now was the time when he was at his most inflated. He just heard the voice behind him, and did not look back to see who was talking behind him. He directly opened his mouth and roared. But soon he saw traces of ridicule in Lin Yuan's heterochromatic eyes. It seemed that his words were not appropriate, but he could not think of any problem with his words. After all, Master Qingming was one of the few Void Realm cultivators on the northern frontier. Even Hu Yan and the others in the past had to respectfully greet his master when they saw him. The person who spoke. Thinking of this, the strong man of Heavengang realm slowly turned around and saw the figure in silver armor. His pupils shrank to the size of a needle and he exclaimed, Yen! Yen! There weren't many Kongming realm cultivators in the northern frontier, but strictly speaking, there were still a few of them. Among them, the guardian of the northern frontier, Yen Xingqi was the strongest, followed by Freedom Courtyard's Master Qin. Then there were Master Qingming, Old Demon Bloodsea, and Fairy Qinsei. These three experts each oversaw a region. Below them were some Tom, Dick and Harry. They were a bunch of old farts who were stuck at the peak of the Heaven Dipper realm. They relied on their low cultivation to compete with those weaker than them. Any sect that didn't have a Kongming realm cultivator would be bullied by these old farts. However, when they saw the existence of these 5 Heaven Dipper realm cultivators, they all behaved like obedient dogs. He was now admiring his own courage. After all, in the entire northern frontier, the number of people who dared to say that Yen Xingqi was courting death could be counted with one's fingers. Even if his master was here personally, he might not have the guts to shout at Yen Xingqi. Right now, he felt like his head was buzzing and his mind was completely blank. Yen Xingqi strode in front of He Shi and directly passed by this Heaven Realm cultivator. He crossed his arms and looked at He Shi with a scrutinizing gaze. He said in a deep voice, He Shi, I'm very curious. What are you trying to do by making such a big commotion in the northern region? After being questioned by Yan Xingqi, Lin Yuan was stunned. He had thought that Yan Xingqi could be the reinforcements that Lei Fan had invited. He had also thought that Yan Xingqi was planning to take advantage of this opportunity to kill him, the demonic beast that was causing trouble in the northern frontier, and use this opportunity to liberate the northern frontier and bring the northern frontier back under the control of mankind. However, he had never thought that Yan Xingqi would actually ask him about his plans for the future with such a serious face. These aristocratic families and sects in the northern frontier are like leeches that cling onto the northern frontier. Every year, they siphon off huge amounts of benefits from the northern frontier. Every time they consume resources, it is the blood and sweat of countless citizens of the northern frontier. I don't care about the past, but now that the northern frontier is under my rule, it is impossible for them to continue doing such things. Furthermore, these aristocratic families and sects have exploited the citizens of the northern frontier for so many years. Now that I am making them bleed, and it is also beneficial to the northern frontier, this isn't too much, right? Lin Yuan raised his eyelids and said in a low voice. Yan Xingqi pondered for a moment, then laughed lightly and said, "What if they are not willing?" Although Yan Xingqi was the guardian of the northern frontier, he did not have a wife or children, and did not have any family ties. Therefore, he was not within Lin Yuan's scope of attack. However, he was very interested in Lin Yuan's way of thinking. After all, even a powerful sovereign king like Lei Qiuxing would not dare to offend the aristocratic families and sections. Since ancient times, there had been many sovereigns who had died in strange ways, almost all because they had interfered with the interests of the aristocratic families and sections. Since ancient times, it had always been the aristocratic families and sects that stepped on the heads of the citizens, sucking the blood of the citizens, and forcing the citizens to worship them as gods. They would be proud if their children could become disciples of the sects or become members of the aristocratic families. While they were envious of the aristocratic families and sects for having such rich resources, they never seemed to realize that such a huge amount of wealth had actually flowed out from their hands. Of course, they could not be biased. The existence of the aristocratic families and sects was not completely a disadvantage. When faced with evil forces like the demonic beasts and heretic cultivators, there were many places where the local government could not take care of everything. Basically, it was the local aristocratic families and sects that protected the citizens. Therefore, there was no need to fight against the smaller aristocratic families and sections. However, if it was the larger aristocratic families and sects, it would be a headache for the 7 dynasties, as it was hard to say if they could win or not. However, in the northern frontier, Lin Yuan did not need to worry about this problem. Firstly, there were the demonic beasts in the Hengduan mountain range. Although they did not have a good relationship with Lin Yuan, they would receive a large amount of spiritual items from Lin Yuan every month as dividends. It was not a problem for them to restrain their subordinates and not disturb the citizens. In addition, the plans for the northern frontier's census and identity verification were already on the right track. Apart from the spies that the major forces had scattered in the northern frontier, Lin Yuan could guarantee that in the future, even the secret agents of the 7 dynasties would not be able to move freely in the northern frontier, let alone heretic cultivators. In such an environment, the benefits of the aristocratic families and sects were next to nothing. They would even drag down the Northern Frontier Academy that Lin Yuan had established. It was even to the extent that both sides wanted to strangle each other to ensure that their interests would not be shaken. This was the real reason why both sides had shed all pretense of cordiality. Chapter 355. I will definitely eradicate the forces of the sections. With the existence of the academy, the people of the northern region will no longer need to pay such a huge price to cultivate. After taking away the students, the major sects will definitely be short of manpower. Therefore, before we have a falling out, I have to directly destroy the sects of the northern region. Otherwise, they might not dare to take revenge on me. However, it will be too easy for me to make a move on the instructors and students of the academy to intimidate the commoners who want to enter the academy. As for the aristocratic families, I I will set new rules for them. Of course, while depriving them of some privileges, I will ensure that they can earn enough to support their families. However, after I take over the northern frontier, I do not wish for the orders of the northern frontier prince's mansion to remain unissued. I also do not wish for there to be any dissenting voices in the northern frontier. If there is a problem with my way of thinking, we can discuss and solve it. I have no objections. However, if there is a voice that exists purely to oppose me or to obtain privileges for some people, I only have one attitude: kill. Lin Yuan narrowed his eyes and said slowly, Yin Xingqi, no matter what you think, what I want to say is that a new era has begun in the northern frontier. Even if I fail, there will be a day when someone will succeed me. Anyone who opposes the era will only end up being crushed by the current of the era. When Yin Xingqi first appeared here, Lin Yuan did not know what Yin Xingqi wanted to do. However, when Yin Xingqi saw him, the first thing he asked was what he wanted to do. With such a straightforward way of speaking, if Lin Yuan could not guess what Yin Xingqi was thinking, then he deserved to die here today. Even though Lin Yuan spoke with an indifferent attitude, his heart was filled with eagerness. After all, having a Void Nether Realm expert in the northern frontier was completely different from having a group of desolate demon realm monsters supporting Lin Yuan in the Hengduan Mountains. If Lin Yuan suddenly died in the northern frontier, the demonic beasts of the Hengduan mountain range would at most organize a beast tide to take revenge on these humans. However, if both sides really went to war, even if the other 6 dynasties were willing to see the Shenwu dynasty fall, they would not be willing to see the Shenwu dynasty's territory be occupied by the demonic beasts. At that time, the 7 dynasties might even join forces to attack the Hengduan mountain range. Therefore, although the demonic beast's strength seemed powerful, they were indeed unreliable. But if Lin Yuan had a Void Realm cultivator behind him, that would be a different story. Especially when the one supporting Lin Yuan was Yin Xingqi, the publicly acknowledged strongest cultivator in the northern frontier. If Yin Xingqi wanted to take revenge on a certain faction, that faction might not be able to withstand it. Yin Xingqi stroked his chin and smiled. Interesting. I'm suddenly interested in the new era that you mentioned. How about it, Blackwater Dragon King? Do you want to bring me to see what the new era looks like? When Yin Xingqi's voice fell, the faces of most of the people present turned gloomy. Today, Lin Yuan had used his actions to prove that he could kill a Heaven Star Border Realm level 4 cultivator like killing a dog. If he joined forces with Yin Xingqi, the sects in the northern frontier would definitely be wiped out and expelled if they did not quickly unite. Most importantly, they did not even know if they could make it out of the secret realm alive. It was impossible for them to spread this important news to their respective sections. Shui Yan's face was gloomy at first, but he quickly adjusted his state of mind. This was because Lin Yuan said that he would set new rules for the aristocratic families instead of uprooting the aristocratic families. He would also ensure that the aristocratic families would gain enough benefits from the new rules. In addition, Lin Yuan's promise to him was like a tranquilizer. Invisibly, a murderous aura spread out in the air. Other than Shui Yan and Chen Guanshan, everyone present had a look of despair. At the same time, Lei Qiusheng, who was standing by the shore, squinted his eyes and said in a deep voice, "It's about time. The 1st and 2nd battalions will stay behind to keep watch. Once there are any cultivators coming out of the secret realm or approaching from other areas, take them down immediately. The rest of you follow me." Luo Su, who was wrapped in bandages, was slightly taken aback. His eyes revealed a look of confusion as he asked, "Isn't it too early to make a move on the sects? Are you so sure that the Black Snake will reach an agreement with Yin Xingqi? Aren't you afraid that Yin Xingqi will kill the Black Snake and help the sects in the northern frontier to wipe us out? If the Black Snake can't even deal with Yin Xingqi, the Demon Emperor Association would have changed hands long ago." Lei Fan's lips curled up as he laughed coldly and continued, "Furthermore, attack us? Yin Xingqi has stayed in the northern frontier for so many years, and he can't bear to see the northern frontier in a bad state. Our existence has brought changes to the northern frontier, and that is why Yin Xingqi has appeared here. Don't be fooled by his cold face. In his heart, he hopes that we will continue to exist and carry out the orders in his hands." Speaking up to this point, Lei Fan paused for a moment, and the smile on his face deepened. Besides, what right does he have to wipe us out? The northern frontier has more than 600,000 guards. Others may not know what we are doing, but do you think they don't know? Even if it's not for the northern frontier for themselves, they will stand firmly on our side. No matter how strong Yan Xingqi is, can he kill 600,000 people? But the sects, Luo Su opened his mouth again, a look of worry flashing past his eyes. As someone who had spent most of his life in the northern frontier, he was very clear about the morals and power of the sects in the northern frontier. So on the matter of falling out with the sects in the northern frontier, Luo Su had always maintained a conservative attitude. The past is the past, and the present is the present. In the past, if we were to collapse, the Xinwu dynasty would immediately send a new team to take over the northern frontier. But after seeing the huge profits of the northern frontier, everyone in the Xinwu dynasty, including that man, wants to take over the northern frontier. Coupled with the tense situation in various places, the Xinwu dynasty is unable to gather enough people. If the Xinwu dynasty is unable to gather enough people, the sects and families in the northern frontier will have their own ideas. By then, the northern frontier will turn from the prosperous scene it is today into a state of seclusion and war between the various powers. Do you think the Xinwu dynasty is willing to see such a scene? Is Yan Xingqi willing to see such a scene? Don't tell me, what happened to Ma Jun that year will happen again? The smile on Lei Fan's face grew wider and wider, to the point that his smile was somewhat sinister as he said coldly, "Once I fall, the northern frontier will immediately descend into chaos. Even if Yan Xingqi has taken care of the Black Snake, he will still stand on our side. If we follow the Black Snake's plan, we will be the winners." Chapter 356. After receiving the order from the lake in the mystic realm, Hu Yan and the others changed into their armors and began to mobilize the various forces scattered around the northern frontier, such as the Guardian Corps and the Council of the Demon Emperor. After defeating Xiong Wujuan last time, the guards of the northern region had not been used for a long time. First, it was because Lin Yuan had brought a strong economic support to the northern region. Almost everyone intended to take advantage of this opportunity to make a good profit. Not many people intended to cause trouble at this time. Second, it was because the structure of the northern region seemed to be stable, but in fact the secret agents of the sects, aristocratic families, and even the major dynasties were lurking in the northern region, waiting for Lin Yuan to make a mistake. Therefore, all parties were secretly wrestling, but no one would put the struggle on the surface. Today, this legendary army that defeated 5 times their number with 600,000 people once again showed its fangs. In just 4 hours, a third of the hundreds of sects in the northern frontier had been wiped out. At first, the Northern Frontier Guardian Corps still used the excuse of assisting in the investigation. However, after encountering the sect's disciples several times, the officers at the bottom were no longer willing to bet the lives of their subordinates on whether the other party would surrender or not. All the sects and forces that were listed on the elimination list were directly killed without even a chance to talk. At first, there were still some sects and forces that were strong enough that even the Northern Frontier Guardian Corps could not do anything to them. However, their resistance was useless. If they were targeted by a certain dynasty or a stronger force, perhaps they would have gritted their teeth and let this tough bone go. However, this was the Northern Frontier, and their enemy was the Beast King who controlled the northern frontier, and was even conferred as a god by the Xinwu dynasty. Those sects and forces that defeated the Northern Frontier Guardian Corps did not even have time to catch their breath before they heard a series of thunderous footsteps. Those were the footsteps of a beast tide that could shake the earth and mountains when the number of beasts reached a certain scale. The sects and forces that hadn't been attacked by the Northern Frontier Guard Corps were also on tenterhooks. Most of them didn't even know what was going on. They were all trembling and began to send the old, weak, women, and children to the escape routes that they had prepared in advance. If Lin Yuan was in charge of this operation, Lin Yuan would have just raised his hand and let these old, weak, women, and children go. As for nurturing a tiger and inviting calamity, he couldn't wait for a strong enemy to come and give him attribute points. Even if the enemy was a genius, they would have to obediently kneel down and submit to him. In terms of growth speed alone, Lin Yuan didn't believe that there was a creature in this world that could be faster than him. If there was, then it should also be a cheat-like existence. However, the one who was in charge of the cleanup operation this time was not Lin Yuan, but the one who had been lying low in the Northern Frontier Duke's palace all this while. Other than having the title of Duke of the Northern Frontier, Lei Fan, whose real power was not even comparable to the other 6 city lords. Once a venomous snake coiled its body and launched an attack, even a hunter who had dealt with venomous snakes all year round would be caught off guard and bitten fiercely. The petty tricks of those sects did not escape the eyes of the Association of Demon Emperors at all. Therefore, before they reached a safe place, they were intercepted and killed by a group of cultivators in black capes and devil masks. Not to mention the young disciples who were regarded as the seeds of revival by the sects in the future. Even the real old, weak women and children could not win the slightest sympathy in front of the criminals and demi-humans of the Association of Demon Emperors. They were all killed without any hesitation. After the corpses were beheaded, they directly piled up in front of their respective sects' mountain gates, as if to announce that those who went against Lin Yuan would end up in such a miserable state. At the same time, in the Flying Sun Pavilion, a first-rate sect in the Northern Frontier. Preposterous, preposterous. Sect Master Miao Chun paced back and forth in the meeting hall. The expression on his face was so gloomy that it was almost dripping water. After the mystic realm opened, various powers had sent people into the mystic realm. Even the famous Black Snake couldn't resist the temptation of the mystic realm. As one of the first-rate sects who had been secretly controlling the mystic realm for many years, the Flying Sun Pavilion had even sent a candidate for the next sect master, hoping to take advantage of this opportunity to kill Lin Yuan. The other sects were the same. After all, the mystic realm was a place that couldn't be connected to the outside world, and was extremely dangerous to those who didn't know the situation in the mystic realm. Even if a similar place appeared, there might not be enough water-type spirit items to attract the Black Snake. This was the best opportunity to get rid of the Black Snake. Once the Black Snake died, they would throw the blame to the mystic realm's demonic beasts, and the Northern Frontier's Wang residents could only swallow their anger. Without the Black Snake's protection, the Northern Frontier's Wang residents was nothing in the eyes of the other sections. But what Miao Chun didn't expect was that before he received any news, Lei Fan's side had already dared to send out troops to wipe out the various sections. This action seemed to be shedding all pretense of cordiality, but at the same time, it was also sending out a signal. In fact, there wasn't anything good in the mystic realm. The real spirit items were all in the palace in the middle of the mystic realm. Those who didn't have the blood of the dragon race wouldn't be able to enter the palace. Therefore, other than those rogue cultivators, rather than saying that the other sects had entered the mystic realm to search for treasures, it was more accurate to say that each of them had their own ulterior motives. They all wanted to reap some benefits from the battle between Lin Yuan and the other sections. But with Lei Fan's actions, it was needless to say who would emerge victorious in the mystic realm. With regards to the actions of the Northern Frontier's Wang residents, the Flying Sun Pavilion wasn't worried at all. Although the Northern Frontier's guard army was fierce, they were only targeting the third-rate and second-rate sections. Even the higher-level sects in the second-rate sects weren't something that the Northern Frontier's Wang residents could touch, let alone a first-rate sect like the Flying Sun Pavilion. The only thing that made Miao Chun's heart ache was that the Lei Xiao who was sent into the mystic realm was already the most outstanding disciple that the Flying Sun Pavilion had recruited in the past 30 years. Furthermore, he had grown up in the Flying Sun Pavilion. His parents were just commoners, and he didn't have any powerful backing behind him. It could be said that he was the best candidate to inherit the Flying Sun Pavilion. And yet, he had died in the mystic realm just like that. Black Snake, you and I cannot live under the same sky. Miao Chun fiercely pushed out his palm, and the strong wind instantly turned the furniture and antiques into dust. Only then did he walk out of his courtyard with his hands behind his back with a ferocious look on his face. Facing the group of consecrators and elders who were already waiting outside, he said, "Although there are many sects in the northern frontier who don't usually get along well with each other, We have always been united when fighting against external enemies. This time, when the smaller sects are in trouble, it will not look good for us, the bigger sections. All of you will lead your men to assist those smaller sects and bring them under the jurisdiction of the Flying Sun Pavilion for protection. What if the people from the northern frontier's Wang residents stop us? One of the consecrators cupped his hands and asked. Chapter 357. Kill. I'd like to see if this black snake has the guts to come and settle the score with me. Miao Chun narrowed his eyes without any hesitation. He didn't care about the northern frontier prince's mansion at all. In Miao Chun's opinion, as long as he left the black snake, the prince's mansion at the northern frontier prince's mansion would be a paper tiger that couldn't even withstand a single blow. They wouldn't even be as powerful as a second-rate sect. Although they weren't on the brink of destruction, they weren't much of a threat. There's no need for the demon emperor to personally settle the score with you. A calm voice suddenly rang out from the crowd outside the Beiyan mansion. Miao Chun instinctively frowned and looked in the direction of the voice. Immediately, he saw a bearded old man in a tattered white robe leaning on a sword. He held a vermilion gourd in his hand and poured wine into his mouth from time to time. Peak of the heaven star-border realm. Miao Chun narrowed his eyes slightly and looked past the old man's appearance to see the most dangerous side of him. He didn't know how this person managed to sneak into the group of consecrators and elders of the Flying Sun Pavilion, but in terms of cultivation, he wasn't any weaker than him. In addition, he was surrounded by a group of Heaven Star Border Realm experts, yet he was still able to maintain his composure. He was probably an existence that had walked very far on the path of the Heaven Star Border Realm. Although he wasn't able to knock open the gate of heaven and enter the Kongming realm, he was probably much stronger than ordinary Heaven Star Border Realm cultivators. You are. Miao Chun guessed that the other party was at least an expert of the same level as him. Naturally, he didn't have the arrogance of someone who controlled a first-rate sect. Even his gloomy face looked much better. Demon Emperors Association, Wine Sword Mystery. The old man drank the last mouthful of wine in the gourd and narrowed his eyes. He stood up from his original position and walked towards Miao Chun. He even said slowly, "Under the orders of the Demon Emperor Council, I am here to take Miao Chun's head. From today onwards, the Flying Sun Pavilion will no longer exist in the northern frontier." Although the king residences in the northern frontier couldn't touch the sects and factions, it didn't mean that the Association of the Demon Emperor couldn't do the same. Although the Association of the Demon Emperor was a force of the pugilistic world, no one could deny the growing influence of the Association of the Demon Emperor in the Sky Martial continent. Lei Fan had spent almost all of the savings that he had accumulated over this period of time to get the person in charge of the Association of the Demon Emperor, Shi Dong, to agree to help him wipe out a first-rate sect in the northern frontier. However, a promise was just a promise. The assembly of the Demon Emperor was naturally not an impulsive and short-sighted existence. Since they were going to wipe out a first-rate sect, they had to be selective. They had to find a sect with more profits to make their move. If it was about the same, they would pick a soft persimmon to pinch. Although they had the same boss, the Northern Frontier Wang residents and the Assembly of the Demon Emperor were two different factions. Things like working together was just wishful thinking. Even Lin Yuan had to pay a price for using the Assembly of the Demon Emperor. What more an outsider like Lei Fan? Hence, after much deliberation, the Assembly of the Demon Emperor finally set their sights on the Flying Sun Pavilion. After all, although the Flying Sun Pavilion was a first-rate sect in the northern frontier, their foundation was still lacking compared to the other first-rate sections. Furthermore, it was rumored that the Flying Sun Pavilion had a rare lightning-attributed martial art. The Assembly of the Demon Emperor had no reason to let go of this soft persimmon that could be a fat sheep. Humph. Hearing that, Miao Chun broke out in cold sweat and said with a gloomy face, "You sure have big words. Although my cultivation isn't ranked high in the northern frontier, I'm not someone that can be trifled with." Icho. Taishi. Two voices rang out consecutively. A sharp sword chi exploded from the wine sword Xian's body. A snow-white longsword and a dark purple longsword flew over from afar like meteors. one on the left and one on the right. In an instant they pierced into Miao Chun's left and right shoulders. Even for someone as strong as Miao Chun, he was sent flying by the two swords and crashed heavily into his own courtyard. Miao Chun was caught off guard and lost both of his arms in the blink of an eye. Although it wasn't incurable, he definitely wouldn't be able to use both of his arms in this battle. However, this didn't make Miao Chun lose his fighting spirit. As the person in charge of a first-rate sect, if he were to cower in the matter of the sect's survival just because he was injured, how would he be able to walk in the pugilistic world in the future? Putao, sang Luo. The wine sword Xian opened his mouth again. A red long sword and a green long sword pierced through the air. Just as Miao Chun leaped out from the ruins of his courtyard, they once again pierced into Miao Chun's legs accurately. In a face-to-face encounter, his limbs were crippled. A group of consecrators and elders of the Feiyang Pavilion looked at each other with horror in their eyes. They began to think about the origin of the wine sword Xian. He was obviously in the same realm as the pavilion master. Why didn't the pavilion master even have the ability to resist in front of him? The wine sword Xian saw that the atmosphere suddenly stagnated. He smiled freely and said indifferently, "Let me say it first. I have a total of 12 flying swords. You can leave or stay as you wish." As soon as the voice fell, the little thoughts in everyone's heart instantly collapsed. He fought with the powerhouse of the same level in a face-to-face encounter. Wasn't it over with one sword to kill the existence of the Heaven Dipper realm from the early stage to the high stage? So everyone didn't dare to be noisy. They all stood aside obediently, waiting for the winner between the wine sword Xian and Miao Chun. 1,000 days drunk. Seeing that everyone no longer moved, the wine sword Xian's gaze fell on Miao Chun, whose limbs were crippled, and opened his mouth again. This time, the sword didn't come from afar. The sword that the wine sword Xian was leaning on trembled slightly, trying to escape from the shackles of the scabbard. It turned into a cold light and instantly pierced through Miao Chun's chest. Miao Chun's eyes were wide open. There was still a look of unwillingness in his eyes, but he slowly fell back. The aura on his body also dissipated the moment the sword pierced through his chest. An existence at the peak of the Heaven Dipper realm didn't even have the chance to make a move against the wine sword Xian. Although the wine sword Xian made 5 sword attacks, strictly speaking, he only made 3 attacks from the beginning to the end. The people from the Demon Emperor Association will come over to take over the Feiyang Pavilion's assets. The Demon Emperor Association has a good grasp of the Feiyang Pavilion's assets. You should consider the consequences of lying and concealing the truth. The wine sword Xian pulled out the 5 long swords from Miao Chun's body one by one. Then he tidied up his white robe and walked towards the Feiyang Pavilion's mountain gate. He muttered, "That's all you have. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have come personally. You delayed my drinking." How could the Sword King, who single-handedly killed the rebel army, be in existence that a mere leader of a sect in the northern frontier could challenge? The group of consecrators and elders of the Feiyang Pavilion also had a bitter expression. The little scheme in their hearts was also gone. While the Demon Emperor Association was growing stronger, the threshold to join was also terrifyingly low. Any cultivator who claimed to be a member of the Demon Emperor Association would be accepted. Of course, the Demon Emperor Association also had a set of identity screening procedures. It was just that outsiders didn't know about it, including those who were members. Chapter 358. Therefore, although everyone had their own identities on the surface, at least half of the consecrators and elders present were members of the Association of the Demon Emperor. After all, the Association of the Demon Emperor was backed by Lin Yuan, the Demon Emperor. No matter if it was the Northern Frontier King's residence, the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce, or even the black market, they had certain privileges. Naturally, they wouldn't turn a blind eye to these privileges. And to Lin Yuan, who controlled the Association of the Demon Emperor, the benefits in the eyes of others were just a little sweetness in his hands. In the Association of the Demon Emperor, as long as one could bring out a certain amount of evidence, they could use their information to exchange for a considerable amount of reward. Of course, if the same information was sold by someone else first, then you naturally wouldn't be able to get the reward, unless you could continue to supplement the information or expose that the information was a complete lie. Similarly, some merchants and cultivators were also used to buying information from the Association of the Demon Emperor. The Association of the Demon Emperor, which was previously encircled by the Shimwu dynasty, had become an indispensable force in the northern frontier. Most people in the northern frontier didn't even want to provoke the Association of the Demon Emperor. Subsequently, a large number of people from the Association of the Demon Emperor went straight to the Flying Sun Pavilion and quickly handed over the current assets of the Flying Sun Pavilion. Even the library where Miao Chun strictly set the reading rules when he was alive was completely emptied. Even the rumored thunder technique, whose authenticity was unknown, fell into Sherdong's hands and was prepared to hand it over to the Demon Emperor. However, before this thunder technique fell into Sherdong's hands, it was unknown how many copies had been copied. No matter what kind of creature it was, they would always have their own selfish motives. Lin Yuan never minded that his subordinates had their own selfish motives. If a person followed you without any desires, it would be fine if they were just friends. But if they were superior and subordinate, then you would have to be afraid. Soon, the news of the Flying Sun Pavilion's destruction spread throughout the northern frontier. Like Miao Chun, most of the first-rate sects who had issued the order to rescue the smaller sects could no longer sit still. After all, no one had expected Lin Yuan's subordinates to be able to burst forth with such terrifying power in an instant. Previously, when both sides were on good terms, they all felt that Lin Yuan and his subordinates were just nouveau riche. They seemed to be powerful, but they were completely supported by the Hengduan mountain range's monstrous beasts. If they really fought, they could easily crush the Association of the Demon Emperor and the northern frontier's Wang residents. Within 4 hours, 1/3 of the sects in the northern frontier had been wiped out. Even the Flying Sun Pavilion, a first-rate sect, had been annihilated by the Association of Demon Monarchs. This made them tremble with fear. After all, the Association of Demon Monarchs had the ability to annihilate first-rate sections. If the Association of Demon Monarchs could annihilate the Flying Sun Pavilion, how could they not be annihilated? At the other side. At this moment, Lei Fan, who had returned to Shunning City, was looking at the reports of victory that were sent to him. He couldn't stop smiling. Now that the northern frontier was in a state of panic, the aristocratic families that weren't implicated were all watching the show peacefully. After all, in their opinion, they were ultimately different from the sections. The sects could indeed protect one side, but not only could the aristocratic families protect one side, they were also the strong and powerful economic pillars of the entire northern frontier. If they were to collapse, no matter how many spiritual items there were in the northern frontier, they wouldn't be able to sell as well as before. In this day and age, not everyone was qualified to cross the battlefield and come to the northern frontier to collect goods. The Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce was supplying goods to the outside world, and they would need the men of the aristocratic families. You would never be able to wake up a person who was pretending to be asleep. Just like how the aristocratic families were still indulging in their own fabricated dreams and didn't want to wake up. What the aristocratic families could do, the Northern Frontier Guard Corps couldn't do. Without the threat of the Shimwu dynasty and the Hengduan Mountains, other than the sects, there weren't many forces that needed to mobilize the Northern Frontier Guard Corps. If it wasn't for the fact that 600,000 men wasn't a lot to begin with, and even if Lin Yuan didn't contact the Northern Frontier Prince's residence to sell spiritual items, Lei Fan would have long taken the lead to request for a reduction in the army. Now, the Northern Frontier sects only had one feeling towards the Northern Frontier Prince's residence and the Association of the Demon Emperor: fear. At this stage, Lei Fan's objective had been completely achieved. As long as the sects were afraid, they would definitely form an alliance. Although the sects wouldn't easily make a move against the Northern Frontier Prince's residence, even if the Northern Frontier Prince's residence was loyal to the Black Snake, they were still nominally under the Shimwu dynasty. Once they took the initiative to stir up trouble, it wouldn't be any different from a rebellion. The reason why the Azure Pung King was able to rebel was firstly, because his surname was Lei. Secondly, It was because Lei Qiuming had a high reputation in the military. Therefore, he was able to swiftly mobilize hundreds of thousands of troops for his own use. However, the sects in the northern frontier didn't have this ability, even if they added up to hundreds of thousands of men. In terms of combat strength, the underworld and the regular army were two different things. Didn't you see how those small sects didn't have any resistance in front of the Northern Frontier Guard Corps? Lord of the Northern Frontier, why are you smiling so happily? Did something good happen? Hu Yan, who was dressed in armor, strode into the office shared by the 7 city lords. He took a sip of tea and his eyes were filled with smiles. Hu Yan, who was born in an aristocratic family, didn't have a good impression of the sections. Moreover, his current boss, Lin Yuan, had an irreconcilable relationship with the sections. Usually, the Hu family had been suppressed by the sections. Now that there was an opportunity to take revenge, Hu Yan naturally wouldn't miss it. Of course it's something good. Lei Fan put down the reports in his hands and spread his hands out with a smile. The various sects in the northern frontier have already started to prepare for the alliance. Don't you think that's a good thing? Hu Yan was slightly stunned and a tinge of doubt flashed across his eyes. But very quickly, a faint smile flashed across Hu Yan's face. You mean? That's right. The various sects have people from the Demon Emperor Association. Moreover, the alliance has just been established and no one will be willing to submit to anyone. Just creating a little bit of friction will be enough to blow things up. We can make use of this opportunity to implement the new policies that we had previously. The smile on Lei Fan's face didn't change, but his eyes were flashing with a cold glint as he said in a cold voice. Once the new policies are signed, even those super first-rate forces with Void Realm cultivators can forget about being an exception. Otherwise, there won't be any place for them in the 7 dynasties. And if they don't let us sign the new policies, then the super first-rate sects in the northern frontier will no longer have a need to exist. Without these cannon fodders, they will have no choice but to move out of the northern frontier sooner or later. At that time, our goal will still be achieved. Hu Yan's voice was similarly cold as he continued his sentence. Following that, he sighed with emotion. Lord Dragon King is still the best. To be able to play these sects and forces in the palm of his hand. No matter what they choose, it won't affect our plan. Chapter 359. The movement techniques of the illusionary god sect are only SOSO. The last Heaven Star Border Realm cultivator, who tried to escape, was killed by the halberd 100 miles away. Only then did Yan Xingqi lick his lips, as if he had not had enough. As a hint of regret flashed across his eyes. He had been hiding in the northern frontier for many years. Back then, the valiant general who charged into the battlefield had restrained his killing intent due to an unspoken rule in the Tianwu continent. He obediently squatted in Shunning City, bearing the title of Protector. Other than the battle with the Fire Kirin, the last time he fought was more than 10 years ago, and it was to take care of a group of ignorant heretic cultivators from the Shuangjin dynasty. The various forces abided by the rule that desolate demons and Kongming realm cultivators were not allowed to casually attack low-level cultivators. This was the same for the monsters that they treated as supplements. However, the heretic cultivators who were also humans were not included in this rule. These people spent all their time thinking about overthrowing the rule of humans, summoning an indescribable existence from the endless void to rule this world. Towards these brainless lunatics, no one cared about the rules. The corners of Chen Guanshan and Shui Yan's mouths twitched as a hint of fear flashed across their eyes. Originally, it was a fight to the death between them and Lin Yuan, and the outcome of the battle was as expected. When everyone stopped underestimating Lin Yuan and fought with him, Lin Yuan's method of instantly killing a Heaven Star Border Realm cultivator was not used. Other than those airborne realm cultivators who were just there to make up the numbers, the greatest result of the battle was the lightning cultivator that Lin Yuan killed after grasping the opponent's attack rhythm. However, when Yan Xingqi entered the battlefield, everyone knew what true strength was. Even if the remaining Heaven Star Border Realm cultivators used all their methods, they could only delay him for a little while. When Senior Su and Li Chang were both killed by Yan Xingqi, the Heaven Star Border Realm cultivator, who roared out the sound wave, immediately used his sect's famous movement technique to escape. The moment he moved, he had already appeared dozens of miles away. With such speed, they would not be able to catch up even if they risked their lives. However, in front of Yan Xingqi, this protector only glanced at him before casually throwing out the halberd in his hand, killing the illusionary god sect cultivator easily. No wonder the Xinwu dynasty only sent one Heaven Star border realm cultivator to guard this place. As long as the desolate demons in the Hengduan mountain range did not come out, the northern frontier would be able to maintain a stable situation where the Hengduan mountain range. Black Snake, you have chosen a good path. However, it is a pity that you have affected the interests of too many people. If you are determined to take this path, you will definitely die in less than 3 years. Yan Xingqi did not even bother to pick up his halberd as his eyes revealed a trace of fatigue. It was not because of how tiring it was to suppress a group of Heaven Star border realm cultivators, but because it was simply boring. Senior, what can you teach me? Lin Yuan coiled up his snake body as a ray of light flashed across his heterochromatic eyes. What he wanted to do had indeed affected the interests of too many people. The so-called foundation of the aristocratic families and sects would be smashed and broken bit by bit in the face of Lin Yuan's reforms, until these existences no longer had the power to challenge Lin Yuan. They would either live within the rules that Lin Yuan had set for them, or be wiped out by Lin Yuan. Those aristocratic families and sects would obviously not sit and wait for that day to come. Even if what Lin Yuan said was true, that what he had set off was the tide of the era, and that anyone who tried to resist would be directly crushed, it was obvious that they would die regardless of whether they fought or not. These people would obviously not let Lin Yuan have an easy time. At worst, both sides would just perish together. Your new policies are not bad. The benefits are in the present, and the merits are in the future. However, the world will not tolerate this, so you cannot do these things. The reason is that your body is not strong enough to make everyone fear you. Yan Xingqi's eyes slightly narrowed as he pondered for a moment, then slowly said, therefore, you have 2 options now. One is to join forces with Lei Qiuxing and quickly eliminate the internal and external problems of the Xinwu dynasty. Then, you can hand over your new policies to Lei Qiuxing. This old man has been dissatisfied with the sects and aristocratic families for a long time. However, even if the aristocratic families were destroyed, there would always be a branch that would appear out of nowhere and continue to carry the banner of the aristocratic families. No matter how good Lei Qiuxing is at killing, he would not be able to wipe out everyone in the Xinwu dynasty, right? Yan Xingqi's suggestion made Lin Yuan's eyes light up. Handing over the new policies to Lei Qiuxing was indeed much more suitable than doing it himself. This overbearing king also did not like other voices in his country. The number of sects and aristocratic families that Lei Qiuxing found excuses to suppress and destroy was more than the total number of sects and aristocratic families in the northern frontier combined. However, there was no suitable way to wipe them out completely. Would your meritorious subordinates be rewarded? After the rewards, these fellows would become the new aristocratic families. Lin Yuan's method was not purely to destroy them, but to directly cut off their foundation. So what if there were aristocratic families everywhere? Once they jumped out of Lin Yuan's rules, Lei Qiuxing could easily label them as rebels, and then clean up these disobedient people. Even the imperial censors would have to obediently shut their mouths. Who would be willing to be associated with a group of rebels? May I ask, Senior, since there is one, then there will be 2 and 3, right? In the end, Yan Xingqi was an old senior who had more experience than the younger generation. Yan Xingqi's casual suggestion was enough to benefit Lin Yuan greatly. After all, he had never thought of joining hands with the indigenous powers of Sky Martial Continent to reform. In his eyes, even a king like Lei Qiuxing was an existence that was similar to a burden. What was the difference between the imperial family and the aristocratic families? They were just slightly bigger aristocratic families. That's right. Although this plan is safe and feasible, but you have to know that when you see Lei Qiuxing as your greatest enemy, Lei Qiuxing also has no reason to let you go. If you were just a noble in the northern frontier, it would be fine. But you were born in the Hengduan mountain range. and have the blood of the dragon clan flowing in your body. As such, the two great demonic beast groups are inextricably linked to you. Compared to the aristocratic families and sects, you, the Black Snake, are more of a threat to Lei Qiusheng. However, since the new policies were created by you, if anything were to happen, Lei Qiusheng would naturally find someone to take the blame and implicate you. In the short term, he will not be able to touch you, nor will he be able to touch you. If you grow fast enough, before Lei Qiusheng's blade cuts your neck, you will already have the qualifications to wrestle with him. At that time, he can only grit his teeth and swallow it in his stomach. Yan Xingqi's eyes shone brightly. As an existence that was on par with Lei Qiusheng in the past, even if he had been hidden for decades, Yan Xingqi's foresight was sufficiently shrewd. Chapter 360. However, this old man's second path still depends on you. After all, the Xinwu dynasty is currently in a mess. Even if you wisely chose to retreat in order to advance, helping Lei Qiusheng stabilize the situation, while also stabilizing your position as the god of the northern frontier, no one can deny that with your example, the entire Xinwu dynasty is now impetuous. Otherwise, the Qingpeng king wouldn't have directly started an uprising. If you don't want to take the safe path, you might as well directly fall out with Lei Qiusheng and quickly eliminate the Xinwu dynasty that has been lurking in the northern frontier for a long time. You will also defeat the sects and suppress the aristocratic families. In a short period of time, you will become the enemy of the entire world. However, the advantage of doing this is that as long as you don't infringe on the interests of those top-notch figures, and with this old man's support, there will be many people who want to beat you up, but those who really make a move will basically be within your capabilities. If you take this path, the only two requirements are that you are fierce enough and ruthless enough. Furthermore, you have to keep up with your growth speed. At least before this mess is settled by Lei Qiusheng, you have to grow to the point where Lei Qiusheng will splash blood on you. You, who have control of the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce and the Fey Trade, already have the initial requirements. Therefore, what you need to do now is... At this point, Yan Xingqi paused and said with a gloomy expression, increase your own strength, and at the same time, have more control over the northern frontier. Otherwise, Zhang Xiu won't kill you, Black Snake, and casually help a nobody to take over the foundation that you have painstakingly built. Lin Yuan didn't continue the conversation, and maintained his silence while revealing a thoughtful expression. Yan Xingqi was a fierce general who had been on the battlefield for many years. His strategic foresight was extremely accurate. The two suggestions he gave were both feasible. The first one was for Lei Qiusheng to fight with his life on the line, and the winner would definitely be Lei Qiusheng. However, after Lei Qiusheng won against the aristocratic families and sects, the first one to be dealt with would be Lin Yuan. The second option was to let Lin Yuan risk his life. As long as he could protect the base in his hands, Lei Qiusheng wouldn't be able to touch him for the time being. And Lei Qiusheng, who coveted the stability and unification of the northern frontier, would also take this path. However, this would allow Lin Yuan to enter the stage of power struggle in advance, and at the same time, weaken the enemies that Lin Yuan would have to face. After all, Lei Qiusheng wanted to walk the same path as Lin Yuan. Naturally, he wouldn't sit and watch Lin Yuan fall. Wouldn't that give those aristocratic families and sects the opportunity to spread rumors that Lin Yuan's path was evil? At that time, not to mention dealing with Lin Yuan in private, even some of the new national policies would lean towards supporting Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan pondered for a moment, then suddenly laughed and said loudly, "Senior has been hiding for dozens of years, and you still have such shrewd eyes. It seems that Lei Qiusheng's ability isn't that great after all." Lin Yuan's words were full of flattery, but more of a warning. After all, Yan Xingqi could help Lin Yuan come up with a plan, and had the confidence to support Lin Yuan. This meant that Yan Xingqi wasn't as quiet as he seemed on the surface. He was just waiting for an opportunity to come back and compete with Lei Qiusheng. And now that Lin Yuan had taken over the northern frontier, obviously, Yan Xingqi saw the opportunity to defeat that famous warrior of the past. Yan Xingqi stroked his beard and didn't say anything. But in his heart, he silently complained for a while. If Lei Qiuxing really didn't have the ability, then why did Wine Sword Mystery, who was at the peak of Heaven Dipper realm, hide in the northern frontier? Why couldn't the remaining members of the Jiao clan, who were supported by all the local officials of the dynasty, survive after leaving the Hengduan Mountains? Yan Xingqi was a Void Nether Realm warrior. Why would he stay in the northern frontier for dozens of years? Lei Qiuxing not only had the ability to recognize people, he also knew how to use them, and dared to use them. Even if he was afraid of Yan Xingqi, he still only exiled him to the bitter cold northern frontier to guard his door. Because although Lei Qiuxing had a headache over them, but if both sides really went all out, Lei Qiuxing could still completely control them. Even Yan Xingqi, who couldn't win against Lei Qiuxing in the past, had reached the Void Nether realm for such a long time. How could Lei Qiuxing's strength stop at the Heaven Dipper realm? It was nothing more than Lei Qiuxing deceiving others for the sake of carrying out some of his plans. All these years, because of Lei Qiuxing's constant suppression of the aristocratic families and sects, it wasn't as if there were no Void Tier cultivators who had infiltrated the imperial capital to assassinate Lei Qiuxing. But in the end, didn't they all end up without any news? However, this black snake that jumped out of Lei Qiuxing's calculations did indeed let Yan Xingqi see a glimmer of hope. A glimmer of hope to defeat that man. The man and the snake looked at each other for a while. Then Yan Xingqi finally let go of his hand that was stroking his beard, and said with a smile, "Looks like Lord Dragon King has already made his decision. Then I should go and make some preparations. Goodbye. I won't see you out." Lin Yuan nodded slightly, then turned his head to look at Chen Guanshan and Shui Yin beside him, and whispered a few words to them. The two of them then followed Yan Xingqi's path towards the exit of the secret territory. Lin Yuan, who was standing at the same spot, was silent for a while, then he laughed coldly. Lei Fan, being too ambitious is not a good thing. I hope you don't go overboard and cause everyone to be unable to clean up the mess. As his voice fell, Lin Yuan's body shook, and he abruptly flew towards the palace in the center of the secret territory. After Lin Yuan's figure had completely disappeared, a huge figure slowly appeared. A ferocious scarlet snake tail wrapped around the tortoiseshell, and it said with a vicious tone, "Zhen Hai, you have guarded Lord's tomb for so many years, and you just watched as that black Jiao disturbed Lord's peace?" The tortoiseshell called Zhen Hai was silent for a while, then he slowly replied, "Ying Tian, you and I are one. Even that old monk could see through my thoughts. Must you ask the obvious? Those fellows could come back at any time, and with one more person who knows the inside story, our strength will increase. Compared to this world, do you think Lord's peace is more important?" The golden relic also flew out from the tortoiseshell, chanting Buddha's name. Amitabha, to be able to maintain his state of mind under the influence of that evil being, and to be able to understand our language, this black Jiao is either the son of some great person, or a powerful being who has reincarnated. With him around, this world will indeed be more stable. After all, he is in existence who has survived the sea of bitterness as a spirit. Zhen Hai leisurely continued the relic's words, his voice carrying a hint of self-mockery. We have already fallen to such a state, and even if we want to protect this world, we can't do it anymore. Why don't we just hand it over to that young man, and let him fight for us? Being suppressed in this Sumeru world like this, there is nothing bad about it. It's just that the old monk is chanting scriptures every day. It's too noisy. Yes. Ying Tian nodded his head, agreeing with Zhen Hai's last sentence. Chapter 361. Time flowed like water. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. Master Qin sat in the meditation hall and cultivated. 3 days ago, all the major sects gave up their bases that they had been operating for many years without hesitation. After dismissing a large number of disciples, they brought their elites to the Freedom Yard for the purpose of contending against the northern frontier Wangfu. If it was only second-rate or third-rate sects that were swept away, they could still sit back and watch the northern region Lord Mansion perform. However, as a first-rate sect, the Flying Sun Pavilion was actually uprooted on the same day. Even the sect's assets fell into the hands of the Association of Demon Emperors. This was something that they couldn't help but be fearful of. Miao Chun was in existence at the peak of the Heaven Dipper realm. Even if he wasn't in the first sequence, he was still a famous expert. However, according to insiders, Miao Chun couldn't even last 3 moves against the Association of the Demon Emperor's member, who called himself Jiu Jianxian. Yes, 3 moves. 1 move and 2 swords were also 3 moves. Furthermore, everyone could tell that the reason why Miao Chun was able to withstand 3 moves was because the Wine Sword Profound was deliberately intimidating the people of the Flying Sun Pavilion. Otherwise, the moment Miao Chun stepped out of the courtyard, the Wine Sword Profound would have easily pierced Miao Chun's heart. Therefore, the various sects could not sit still, and all of them came to the Freedom Courtyard to seek refuge. Who asked the Freedom Yard to have 3 Void Realm cultivators. Qin, Kushuan, and Kuhai, the 3 masters were famous in the northern frontier for many years. Even Yan Xingqi and the 3 great beast kings didn't dare to provoke the Freedom Yard. A mere black snake and the northern frontier Wangfu dared to cause trouble in the Freedom Yard? Abbot, it's not good. It's not good. A young monk wearing a yellow robe rushed into Master Qin's meditation hall. He was crying with a young and tender face. Even his voice sounded like he was about to cry. Master Qin, who was offended by the young monk, frowned slightly. However, he couldn't bear to reprimand him when he saw the young monk's dejected face. He slowly stood up from the praying mat, shook off the non-existent dust on his red robe, and said in a deep voice, "My Buddha oversees the heavens. Even if the extraterritorial sky demon descends, the Freedom Yard can still become a pure land. What happened to make you so flustered?" Someone died. The young novice monk was startled by Master Qin's frown, but he quickly explained the reason. With all the major sects and forces gathered near the Repose Courtyard, the northern frontier Duke's mansion indeed did not have the guts to touch them. But under the deterrence of Lin Yuan, Lei Fan, who had been an obedient child for so long, had just taken control of the situation and viciously bit down on those major sects and forces. Even though he knew what it meant to show mercy wherever possible, and clearly knew that he had already achieved great results in the battle, he was still unwilling to let the matter drop just like that. He had been thinking of ways to incite conflict between both sides all this while. Due to the activities of some members of the Association of the Demon Emperor, a young sect master of a first-rate sect had killed a rich young master, who had argued with him in order to win a smile from a beauty. If it was during normal times, this matter would have been reduced to a small matter. At most, the first-rate sect would have held a banquet to apologize and give enough face to the young master's family. In the end, they would have promised some benefits and this matter would have been over. But what was the situation now? Anyone with a discerning eye could see that the northern frontier Duke's mansion had taken action for real this time. Cultivators of the Void Realm were not allowed to interfere, and without the existence of Void Realm cultivators, they would not be able to win against the northern frontier Duke's mansion. Therefore, the sects and forces could be said to be on the verge of collapse. Although some of the more astute aristocratic families had sensed that something was wrong, but they still believed that this was a good opportunity. The greed in their nature did not allow them to choose the method of settling this privately, as they had done in the past. Instead, they chose to report this matter to the authorities, and directly shoved this matter into the hands of the northern frontier Duke's mansion. Of course, with the support of the Freedom Courtyard, they had to stand up for the sects under their protection for the sake of their reputation. If the power of the aristocratic families reporting to the authorities was average, the Freedom Courtyard could directly suppress the northern frontier Duke's mansion and give them a chance to mediate privately. Unfortunately, the aristocratic families of the northern frontier had multiplied for so many years, especially the Qiao family, an ancient family with a history of nearly 1,000 years. Not to mention how many aristocratic families in the northern frontier relied on the Qiao family for survival. If there was a chance, these aristocratic families would all want to have a marriage alliance with the Qiao family. Putting aside the complicated relationship, that unfortunate rich young master would have to call the current head of the Qiao family grand-uncle. Although the relationship between the Qiao family and the northern frontier Duke's mansion had not been made public, they were already in cahoots in private. Naturally, they would not let go of this opportunity to suppress the sections. Therefore, the one who took the lead to report that the young sect master had killed someone was actually an old master of the Chiao family's direct line of descent. With the request of a Heavenly Dipper realm expert, the Northern Frontier Duke's mansion naturally had no reason to be biased towards the sections. Moreover, the relationship between the two parties had already reached a point where it would only end with one party dead. As a matter of fact, the troops of the Northern Frontier Duke's mansion had directly stopped at the entrance of the Freedom Courtyard, demanding for them to hand over the culprit to be punished. One must know that when aristocratic families wanted to borrow the power of the imperial court, they would secretly give some money, spirit items, and other resources to their own stewards, allowing them to communicate with the authorities. Even the side branches would rarely make an appearance. This time, even the old master of the Chiao family's direct line of descent had made an appearance. How could this matter be suppressed? Therefore, the Freedom Courtyard had no choice but to throw this trouble to the three seniors who were meditating in seclusion. After listening to the young novice monk's words, Master Qin gnashed his teeth in hatred. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that this was the Shifter Emperor's Association deliberately digging a hole for the young sect master to jump into. Otherwise, this matter would not have been blown out of proportion. This young sect master was really a F***king idiot. What time was it now? Not only did he run out to indulge in wine and women, but he even F***king killed a young master of an aristocratic family for a woman. However, this matter could not be blamed on the young sect master. After all, the Duke's mansion of the Northern Frontier was serious, and the sects were already in a state of panic. If the news spread that they were beaten by the Duke's mansion of the Northern Frontier, and had to seek the protection of the Freedom Courtyard, most of their disciples would leave in an instant. Therefore, to their disciples, they only said that the Freedom Courtyard was holding a grand event and invited all the sects to attend. Therefore, this young sect master was confused and thought that he was the kind of young master who could call the wind and summon the rain in the Northern Frontier. Not to mention killing someone. If the aristocratic family was not big, it was not impossible for him to directly exterminate the entire family. Master, this matter. How should we deal with it? The young novice monk, who was pushed over to ask for Master Qin's opinion, had a bitter expression on his face. Even with his small brain, he could tell that if it weren't for the fact that the matter was tricky, how could those masters in the Freedom Yard, whose mouths were full of oil, find trouble for themselves by asking for the help of three senior masters who had titles, but didn't care about worldly affairs and focused on cultivation? Chapter 362. Master Qin glanced at the unlucky kid, shook his head and said nothing. How should he deal with this? He just couldn't understand why those brats had to get themselves into such trouble. What kind of existence was that black snake? That was an existence who dared to kill the fire Qilin of the desolate demon realm, when he was only at the peak of wisdom state. Furthermore, he planned meticulously, and even plotted against him and Yanxingqi step by step. In the end, he even killed the old demon beast, the fire Qilin, with his own hands. Thinking about it carefully after returning to the Freedom Courtyard, Master Qin was so shocked that he broke out in cold sweat. How much did your martial uncles take from them to agree to protect them? Master Qin was silent for a moment, and decided to ask about the price first. If it really didn't work, the Freedom Yard would pay double the price to send them away. 1/3 of each family's property. The young novice shrunk his neck guiltily and whispered. When Master Qin asked, he already knew what this senior was planning. After all, in the Jianghu, who wouldn't offend a few existences that they couldn't afford to offend? Didn't the so-called divine sects and Jianghu legends of the Northern Frontier come to make a living at this time? They would step out to protect those who had nowhere else to go, and then take a huge sum of money from those who were protected. Most of the time, they didn't even need to do anything. Which cultivator in Jianghu wouldn't give each other face? However, no matter how famous they were, there would always be a time when they couldn't protect themselves. For example, at this moment, Master Qin was determined not to get into trouble, so he wanted to follow the rules of the Jianghu and give them 3 times the promised benefits, and then send them away safely. This was the most benevolent thing he could do. Hiss. After hearing the young novice monk's offer, Master Kewin gasped in shock. There were many sects of all sizes in the northern frontier. What did it mean for each family to own 1/3 of their property? Even if they sold all the golden statues that the pilgrims in the Freedom Yard spent a lot of money to make, they still wouldn't be able to gather enough money to send these demons away. Therefore, the Freedom Yard had to take care of this matter, and they had to take care of it well. Otherwise, who would respect the Freedom Yard in the future? Master Kewin really wished he could slap all these brainless juniors to death. Now that the young sect master had committed a crime and was hiding in the Freedom Courtyard, the Northern Region Lord's palace had valiantly come to the Freedom Courtyard to demand for him. Putting aside the Northern Region Lord's palace and the association of the Shifter Emperor, there were still many aristocratic families behind this matter. If the Freedom Courtyard couldn't give a satisfactory explanation, they wouldn't let this matter go so easily. Not give. The Northern Region King Palace dared to forcefully tear down the Freedom Courtyard and lock them up. If the Freedom Courtyard resisted, they would be labeled as traitors. At that time, even if they had 3 Void Realm cultivators, they wouldn't be able to do anything. No dynasty would take in a bunch of traitors. At that time, they would have to cross the ocean and hide. They would be even worse than those evil cultivators hiding in the dark. Give. Even if the Repose Courtyard's reputation was ruined, no matter how many powerhouses there were in the Repose Courtyard or how outstanding their techniques were, the cultivation forces would never give them any face in the future. Even those young men who wanted to cultivate had to look at the reputation of the sect before they wanted to be apprenticed. Perhaps after this matter was over, the Repose Courtyard would never be able to receive a single outstanding disciple in the future. Master Kewin almost burst into tears. It was too difficult. It was really too difficult. Let's go out and take a look. After thinking for a while, Master Kewin walked out of the temple. Although he didn't have the confidence to protect the young master, but he had participated in the killing of Huaqiran. He had some ties with Lei Fan and Lin Yuan. Although he had done it for the sake of the Lei family, but now, if he wanted to use this matter to plead for mercy, Lei Fan and Lin Yuan wouldn't take him seriously. The young master couldn't be saved. But if the royal residents of the northern frontier wanted to use this matter to destroy a sect, then he would not agree to it. In the end, just as he walked out of the temple, Master Kewin felt a darkness in front of him. When he raised his head, he saw a black snake about 10,000 feet long circling in the sky above the Freedom Yard. One of its eyes was blue, and the other was the color of ice. It was coldly looking at the Freedom Yard. Although he didn't know why, Master Kewin could feel that the black snake was looking at him. Kewin of the Freedom Yard. Greetings to the Dragon King of the Northern Frontier. The sinister look in Master Kewin's eyes disappeared in an instant, and was replaced by a smile. Lin Yuan nodded calmly. There was no change in his eyes. He said in a low voice, Master Kewin has been in charge of the Northern Frontier for many years, and has a great reputation. And this is not the first time you have met this king. There is no need to be so polite. More and more cultivators gathered. Looking at Lin Yuan circling in the sky, they were all speechless. What kind of F***king monster was this? In less than a year and a half, it went from a beast without any cultivation to a mountain lord monster capable of flight. Furthermore, the pressure it exuded was so strong that some airborne realm cultivators couldn't help but kneel down as soon as they saw Lin Yuan, as if they were worshipping a high and mighty god. The Dragon King is here, and the Freedom Yard. Master Kewin, the laws of the Northern Frontier are strict, and this king has made sure that the new laws of the Northern Frontier have been distributed to every household. As such, you should know that anyone who kills without reason within the jurisdiction of the Northern Frontier, regardless of whether they are humans or monsters, will have to pay with their lives in the best-case scenario. Master Kewin, you should know that this king is now the god of the Northern Frontier conferred by the dynasty, and he has the responsibility of governing the monsters in the Northern Frontier. If this most basic rule is broken, there will be no trade in the Northern Frontier in the future. Wouldn't any person or monster dare to wantonly wage war within the jurisdiction of the Northern Frontier? Before Master Kewin's voice fell, Lin Yuan had already interrupted Master Qin. I know, but the culprit is just a child. I hope that Lord Dragon King can make things easier for me. What a joke. The murderer is a child, but the one who died in my house is not a child. I may not be young, but the elders in my family are still around, and I can still be considered a child. Can't I just kill a few disciples of the Freedom Yard, and then say that I am a child and ask the Northern Frontier to make things easier for me? This time, the one who interrupted Master Qin was not Lin Yuan, but the master of the Qiao clan who went to report to the authorities. He was at level 7 of the Heaven Star Realm and ranked 4th in the Qiao clan. He was usually responsible for teaching the disciples of the Qiao clan to cultivate. He had no talent in business or family management, but he was good at fighting and killing, and his voice was also surprisingly loud. You're tuning in to the Echoes of the Heart YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.